What if the greatest civilization on Earth is hidden beneath Antarctica? In the deepest hours of night, when the world sleeps and mysteries whisper their secrets to those brave enough to listen, consider this. There exists a place where silence itself has weight. Beneath the endless white of Antarctica, where 2 miles of ancient ice press down like the accumulated dreams of millennia, the very air seems to hold its breath. If stories like this draw you into the shadows between the known and unknown, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also comment, where are you from and what time are you watching? Those listening now, perhaps in the quiet sanctuary of your own midnight hours, know this feeling, the pull of something vast and hidden calling from beyond the edge of maps. Here, where compasses lose their way and satellites falter, where the aurora dances to rhythms older than recorded time, whispers tell of chambers carved not by ice, but by hands that knew secrets we have forgotten. What if beneath this frozen fortress lies not emptiness, but watchful eyes that have observed our surface world for thousands of years? From those watching eyes beneath, what would they see of our surface world? Perhaps they observe our satellites as they sweep across their frozen ceiling, mapping what we believe to be the last unexplored continent on Earth. Antarctica, a landmass larger than the United States and Mexico combined, yet 98% of its surface remains locked beneath ice so thick that if it were to melt, the oceans would rise by nearly 200 feet. But here, in this white vastness where the very concept of direction loses meaning, something far more profound than ice depth challenges our understanding. The thermal signatures tell a story that defies the frozen narrative we've been told. NASA's thermal imaging satellites, those mechanical eyes that peer through space to catalogue Earth's heat patterns, have detected anomalies beneath the Antarctic ice that should not exist. Warm zones, some reaching temperatures that would allow liquid water to flow freely, pulse beneath regions where the surface temperature drops to minus 80 degrees Fahrenheit. These aren't the gradual warmth of geothermal vents we might expect. They appear as geometric patterns, as if something beneath is generating heat in organized, almost architectural arrangements. One cannot overlook the peculiar timing of the Antarctic Treaty, signed in 1959 by 12 nations, ostensibly to preserve Antarctica for peaceful scientific investigation. Yet this treaty, unique among international agreements, contains provisions that seem designed less for protection and more for controlled access. Military personnel are prohibited, nuclear testing is banned, and territorial claims are suspended indefinitely. On the surface, these appear as conservation measures. But consider this. Why would nations that had fought 2 world wars suddenly agree to leave the world's largest untapped mineral reservoir untouched? Why would countries racing to claim every strategic advantage in the Cold War suddenly decide that one entire continent should remain off limits to exploitation? The indigenous peoples of the far north, the Inuit and other Arctic cultures, carry in their oral traditions stories that speak of entrances to inner worlds at the poles. These aren't modern fabrications influenced by science fiction, but ancient narratives passed down through generations who lived closest to these frozen realms. The Inuit speak of the land beyond the wind, accessible through openings in the ice where the aurora touched the earth. Tibetan texts describe Shambhala as accessible through polar passages. Hindu scriptures place Mount Meru, the axis of their cosmology, at the Earth's northern extreme, with passages leading to realms within. Norse mythology locates Midgard's entrance through the frozen reaches of Jotunheim. Celtic legends speak of the otherworld accessed through ice caves that glow with their own light. Separate cultures, separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years, yet their stories converge on the same impossible concept. The poles as doorways to hidden civilizations within the Earth itself. But perhaps the most compelling mystery lies not in ancient stories, but in the weight of what we cannot see. 2 miles of ice, imagine that pressing down on whatever lies beneath. The pressure would be immense, enough to compress carbon into diamonds, enough to transform the very structure of matter itself. Yet ice cores drilled from these depths reveal something extraordinary. Pockets of air, trapped millions of years ago, containing atmospheric compositions different from our current atmosphere. richer in oxygen, different in mineral content, as though these samples came not from our Earth's past but from somewhere else entirely. Recent expeditions using ground-penetrating radar have mapped subglacial topography, revealing mountain ranges as tall as the Alps, valleys deeper than the Grand Canyon, and most intriguingly, geometrically regular formations that resist easy explanation as natural phenomena. These structures appear to be arranged in patterns that suggest intention, design, perhaps even habitation on a scale that dwarfs our largest cities. The scientists who study these findings speak carefully, choosing their words with the precision of people who understand the implications of what they've discovered. They discuss unusual topographical features and anomalous thermal readings, rather than addressing the possibility that challenges everything we believe about our planet's history. Yet in the quiet moments after official briefings, in the spaces between published papers, different conversations unfold. Research personnel stationed at Antarctic bases report phenomena that don't make it into official logs. Lights beneath the ice, visible through crevasses that shouldn't emit any illumination. Sounds, not the cracking and settling of ice, but something rhythmic, almost musical, coming from deep within the frozen ground. Equipment malfunctions that follow patterns, as if something below is selectively interfering with certain types of technology while leaving others undisturbed. The question becomes, what requires such protection, such careful concealment beneath the most inhospitable environment on our planet's surface? What would choose to remain hidden beneath 2 miles of ice, in a realm so isolated that the nearest human settlement is over 1,000 miles away, and perhaps more unsettling? What has been watching our fumbling attempts to peer through their frozen ceiling, our satellites and ice-penetrating radar painting crude pictures of what they already know in perfect detail? Those listening now, in whatever corner of the world you find yourself, perhaps feel the same pull that has drawn explorers to these frozen edges for centuries, the sense that something immense and patient waits beneath the white silence. Something that has been there far longer than our civilization has existed, observing, considering, perhaps even preparing. The year was 1947, and the world was still catching its breath from the greatest conflict in human history. Yet in the corridors of the Pentagon, something was stirring that would dwarf the logistical complexity of D-Day itself. Operation High Jump, a name that seems almost whimsical for what became the largest Antarctic expedition in history. Nearly 5,000 personnel, 13 ships, 23 aircraft, and enough supplies for an 8-month mission that was supposed to last 6 months. For what the Navy described as routine mapping and scientific investigation, the scale seemed not just excessive but impossibly so. Leading this massive undertaking was Rear Admiral Richard Evelyn Byrd, a man whose name had already been carved into the ice of both polar regions. He had flown over the North Pole in 1926 and the South Pole in 1929, establishing him as perhaps the most experienced polar explorer alive. This was not a man given to flights of fancy, or prone to the delusions that extreme environments can sometimes induce in lesser minds. His psychological profiles, maintained by the military for decades, painted a picture of methodical precision, unshakable courage, and most importantly, absolute reliability in his observations and reports. What happened during those months in Antarctica remains one of the most carefully guarded secrets in military history. The official reports speak of mapping coastlines, establishing research stations and conducting scientific studies, but the mission ended abruptly in February 1947, 2 months ahead of schedule. Ships returned with sealed cargo holds, personnel were debriefed under conditions of extraordinary secrecy, and Byrd himself disappeared into meetings at the highest levels of government for weeks. The diary that allegedly surfaces from this expedition reads like something from another world entirely. In entries that bear Byrd's distinctive handwriting style, he describes flying beyond the South Pole and encountering landscapes that should not exist. Green valleys where warm winds blow, rivers flowing freely despite being inside the Antarctic Circle, forests of trees unlike any known species, and most remarkably, signs of habitation cities whose architecture defies any known human civilization. The air seems lighter here, almost effervescent, and I note our breathing has become easier. The instruments are behaving strangely, spinning without cause. We seem to be entering a different kind of territory entirely. Below us, impossibly, vegetation appears not the sparse, struggling plant life one might expect at the edge of habitability, but lush growth that suggests an entirely different climate system. The diary describes contact with beings of extraordinary height and bearing, possessing technology that makes their aircraft seem primitive by comparison. These entities, according to Byrd's account, spoke of watching the surface world's development with growing concern, particularly humanity's experiments with atomic energy. They expressed that the time for isolation might be ending, that surface humanity's technological advancement without corresponding wisdom threatened not just the surface world, but the stability of the entire planetary system. In the days following the expedition's return, Byrd was subjected to a period of what can only be described as enforced silence. He was debriefed repeatedly, his official reports were classified at levels that remain sealed today, and he was subsequently assigned to positions that kept him away from public speaking opportunities. The man who had once been a hero of polar exploration, whose previous expeditions had been celebrated in newspapers and radio programs across America, suddenly became almost invisible in public discourse. Yet in the years that followed, Byrd made statements that seemed designed to communicate something he could not say directly. In a 1947 interview with Chilean journalist Lee Van Atter, he spoke cryptically about the United States needing to take protective measures against hostile regions, and mentioned that in the event of a new war, America could be attacked by craft that could fly from pole to pole at incredible speeds. These comments, seemingly disconnected from any known geopolitical threats of the time, take on different meaning when considered alongside the sealed expedition reports. The psychological profile of a man like Byrd becomes crucial to understanding the implications of these accounts. Military psychologists noted his extraordinary stability under extreme conditions, his precise observational skills, and his tendency toward understatement rather than exaggeration. This was not a personality type prone to fabrication or delusion. If Byrd experienced something extraordinary, his training and temperament would have driven him to document it as accurately as possible, regardless of how impossible his observations might seem to others. The equipment failures reported during the expedition follow patterns that would become familiar in later Antarctic research. Navigation instruments spinning wildly, radio communications cutting out at specific geographical coordinates, and photographic equipment producing images that showed more than what the human eye could observe, or sometimes less, as if certain wavelengths of light were being filtered out by unknown means. Personnel who served under Byrd during this expedition, those still living when decades had loosened some of the bounds of secrecy, spoke in their final years of experiences that haunted them. Lights moving beneath the ice, visible through leads and crevasses, sounds that seemed to come from vast depths, not the random cracking of ice under pressure, but something rhythmic, purposeful, almost musical. Aircraft that appeared in radar readings but cast no visual shadows, moving at speeds and executing maneuvers that defied the capabilities of any known technology. The official documentation of Operation High Jump remains heavily redacted even today, nearly 8 decades after the mission's completion. What is released speaks of routine scientific collection, mapping activities, and logistical challenges. What remains classified fills volumes, suggesting that the true discoveries of the expedition were deemed too significant or too dangerous for public knowledge. One cannot help but wonder what exactly required such sustained secrecy. Weather data becomes declassified within decades. Mapping information, especially of uninhabited regions, rarely needs protection beyond standard military intervals. The sustained classification of Operation High Jump's complete records suggests discoveries that would fundamentally challenge established understanding, not just of Antarctic geography, but of humanity's place on this planet itself. The difference between Byrd's public statements and his alleged private observations represents one of the most intriguing mysteries in exploration history. Here was a man trained to observe and report with military precision, yet forced to speak in riddles and metaphors about what may have been the most significant discovery in human history. In the shadows cast by Byrd's expedition lies another journey into the Antarctic unknown, one that preceded Operation High Jump by nearly a decade, and whose true purpose remains even more carefully concealed. The German Antarctic expedition of 1938-1939, officially known as the New Swabia expedition, presented itself as a scientific survey mission designed to establish whaling stations and map uncharted territories. Yet the resources committed to this venture to ships, multiple aircraft and personnel drawn not just from civilian scientists, but from the most secretive branches of the German military and occult research societies, suggest motivations that extended far beyond whale oil and cartography. Captain Alfred Richter commanded the expedition aboard the MS Schwabenland, but the true authority seemed to rest with members of the Ahnenerbe, Heinrich Himmler's organization dedicated to researching ancient Germanic history and what they termed ancestral heritage. These were not typical explorers seeking geographical knowledge, but individuals convinced that the poles held keys to understanding humanity's occult past and potentially its technological future. The expedition's stated goals included mapping Antarctic territories for potential German territorial claims, but the equipment manifest tells a different story. Advanced photographic gear, specialized communications equipment, and most intriguingly, devices designed for detecting electromagnetic anomalies technology that seemed excessive for simple mapping work. They carried provisions for extended stays in conditions that suggested preparation for discoveries requiring prolonged investigation. What they reported finding defied the expectations of a routine polar survey. Ice-free areas with temperatures inexplicably warmer than the surrounding environment, cave systems that extended far beyond what natural formation could account for, and electromagnetic readings that suggested vast metallic structures beneath the ice. The photographs they brought back, those few that have surfaced in declassified German archives, show geographical features that appear almost architectural in their regularity. The Thule Society, the occult organization that had provided osteological foundation for early Nazi mysticism, had long held theories about polar entrances to the inner Earth. These weren't casual beliefs, but central tenets of their worldview. The conviction that advanced civilizations had retreated to the Earth's interior during previous cataclysmic epochs, taking with them technologies and knowledge that surface humanity had lost. The New Swabia expedition seems to have been, at least partially, an attempt to verify these beliefs through direct exploration. Members of the expedition reported encounters that stretched the boundaries of the possible. Aircraft that emerged from areas where no aircraft should exist, moving with capabilities that exceeded any known technology of the era. Structures visible beneath clear ice that showed geometric precision, suggesting intelligent construction rather than natural formation. Most remarkably, several expedition members claimed direct contact with entities that possessed knowledge of German technological development and political intentions, knowledge that should have been impossible for isolated Antarctic inhabitants to possess. The expedition's abrupt termination, officially attributed to the approaching European war, came at a moment when the most significant discoveries were reportedly being made. Personnel were reassigned to other duties with unusual haste, and the detailed maps and photographs they had created were classified at levels that exceeded even Germany's most secret military projects. In the chaos of Germany's defeat, much documentation was destroyed or scattered, but fragments that survived suggest that the Antarctic discoveries influenced German technological development in the war's final years. Advanced propulsion systems, unconventional aircraft designs, and energy technologies that seemed to leap beyond the normal progression of engineering development innovations that appeared suddenly in German research facilities without clear developmental history. Post-war interrogations of German scientists and expedition personnel revealed consistent accounts of Antarctic discoveries that challenged accepted understanding of both geography and physics. Under questioning by Allied intelligence services, these individuals described technologies observed in Antarctic cavern systems that utilize principles unknown to surface science. Crystalline energy sources, electromagnetic propulsion systems, and most intriguingly, methods of environmental control that could maintain temperate conditions within frozen environments. The rumours that circulated in intelligence circles spoke of more than just scientific discoveries. They suggested that certain high-ranking German officials, perhaps including figures from the expedition itself, had established escape routes to Antarctic facilities in the war's final months. While most historians dismiss these accounts as fantasies created by those unable to accept Germany's complete defeat, the sustained Allied interest in Antarctic activities in the immediate post-war period suggests that military planners took these possibilities seriously enough to warrant investigation. Operation Highjump's timing, beginning just 2 years after Germany's surrender, takes on different significance when viewed as a response to German Antarctic activities. The massive scale of Byrd's expedition, far exceeding anything required for scientific research, suggests preparation for encounters with established installations rather than exploration of virgin territory. Intelligence documents that have been declassified in recent decades reveal that Allied forces suspected German Antarctic bases remained operational after the European surrender. Radio transmissions detected from polar regions using German encryption methods continued for months after Berlin's fall. Submarine activity in Antarctic waters, tracked by Allied naval forces, followed patterns consistent with supply runs to established facilities rather than random exploration. The technological artifacts recovered from German Antarctic installations, according to fragmentary intelligence reports, included propulsion systems that operated on principles unknown to Allied science, materials that exhibited properties inconsistent with known physics, particularly in their responses to electromagnetic fields and gravitational forces. Most significantly, documentation that suggested the Germans had made contact with entities possessing far more advanced technological capabilities. What emerges from these scattered accounts is a picture of Antarctic exploration that extended far beyond geographical discovery. Both German and later Allied expeditions seem to have encountered evidence of established civilization in regions that official science insisted were uninhabitable. The sustained secrecy surrounding these discoveries, maintained by multiple governments across political and ideological divides, suggests knowledge deemed too significant or too dangerous for public revelation. The intersection of historical fact and carefully guarded secrets creates a narrative that challenges our understanding of both World War II's hidden chapters and Antarctica's true significance. Those listening in these quiet hours might consider, what discoveries would require such sustained concealment across generations, across changes of government, across the complete transformation of global politics? What lies beneath the ice that multiple nations have agreed must remain hidden from public knowledge? The secrets that German and Allied expeditions encountered in Antarctica's depths were not entirely without precedent. Long before modern explorers set foot on the frozen continent, long before satellites could peer through ice to map subglacial terrain, cartographers were creating maps that showed Antarctic geography with impossible accuracy. These weren't crude approximations or lucky guesses, but detailed representations of coastlines, mountain ranges, and geographical features that would not be officially discovered for centuries. In 1929, while scholars at Topkapi Palace in Istanbul were cataloguing ancient manuscripts, they uncovered a map that would challenge everything historians believed about early exploration and geographical knowledge. The Piri Reis map, created in 1513 by the Ottoman admiral and cartographer of the same name, showed not just the known world of the early 16th century, but coastlines that extended far beyond the limits of contemporary exploration. Most remarkably, the map depicted the northern coast of Antarctica not as the ice-covered wasteland that modern explorers would eventually document, but as a temperate land mass with clear geographical features, river systems, and what appeared to be inhabited regions. This was more than 2 centuries before Captain James Cook would cross the Antarctic Circle, and nearly 3 centuries before the continent would be officially sighted by European explorers. Piri Reis himself acknowledged that his map was compiled from multiple sources, some dating back to antiquity. In notes written on the map itself, he mentions charts used by Christopher Columbus, maps captured from Spanish vessels, and most intriguingly, ancient maps drawn in the time of Alexander the Great. The implication that geographical knowledge of Antarctic regions existed in classical antiquity challenges fundamental assumptions about both ancient navigation capabilities and the extent of early civilizations' geographical awareness. The precision of the Piri Reis map becomes even more extraordinary when subjected to modern analysis. In 1960, Captain Arlington Mallory of the US. Navy, working with specialists from the US. Air Force Strategic Command conducted a detailed study comparing the map's Antarctic coastlines with modern geographical surveys. Their findings were unsettling. The map showed Antarctic coastal features with remarkable accuracy, but depicted them as they would appear without ice coverage. Modern geological surveys using sophisticated ice-penetrating technology have confirmed that the subglacial coastline of Antarctica matches the temperate coastline shown on Piri Reis's 500-year-old map. The correlation is so precise that it suggests the source materials for the map were created when Antarctica was indeed ice-free, or by cartographers who possessed technology capable of seeing through miles of ice coverage. The Admiral Orontius Phineas map, created in 1531, presents an even more detailed impossible knowledge. This French cartographer's depiction of Antarctica shows not just coastlines, but interior geographical features, mountain ranges, river valleys, and what appear to be inland seas, all rendered with the kind of accuracy that suggests direct observation rather than speculation. Phineas's Antarctica appears as a continent roughly the size and shape that modern satellite surveys have confirmed, but again depicted as temperate and habitable. Rivers flow from interior mountain ranges to coastal areas, suggesting a climate system entirely different from the frozen wasteland that modern explorers encountered. Most intriguingly, the map shows what appear to be settlements or cities at various coastal and inland locations, marked with symbols that Phineas used elsewhere to indicate human habitation. The source of such detailed geographical knowledge presents a mystery that conventional history cannot adequately address. The most conservative explanation suggests that these cartographers had access to ancient maps created during a period when Antarctica experienced a temperate climate. Geological evidence does support the possibility that Antarctica was ice-free as recently as 6,000 years ago, though mainstream geology typically places such temperate periods much earlier in geological time. Yet even this explanation raises profound questions. What civilization possessed the navigational technology and geographical knowledge to create accurate maps of an entire continent? The precision required suggests not just coastal exploration, but detailed inland surveys of a scope that would challenge modern cartographic capabilities. Such comprehensive mapping would require sustained expeditionary efforts over extended periods, implying a maritime civilization of considerable technological sophistication. The alternative explanation ventures into territory that challenges accepted understanding of both ancient capabilities and the nature of geographical knowledge itself. If these maps were not created during a temperate period in Antarctica's history, then their creators possessed technology capable of mapping through ice coverage technology that parallels the sophisticated ground-penetrating systems used by modern Antarctic researchers. Charles Hapgood, the Harvard professor whose analysis of these ancient maps gained attention in the 1960s, proposed that the source materials originated from a lost civilization possessing advanced geographical and navigational knowledge. His studies of multiple ancient maps showing impossible accuracy suggested that this knowledge was preserved and transmitted through various cultures over thousands of years, eventually reaching medieval cartographers who compiled it without fully understanding its origins. Modern computer analysis of these maps, comparing their accuracy with current satellite surveys, has yielded results that support Hapgood's conclusions. The mathematical precision of the map projections, the accurate rendering of geographical relationships between distant landmasses, and the consistent depiction of coastlines that match current subglacial surveys suggest source materials created with technological capabilities that exceed accepted understanding of ancient civilizations. The implications extend beyond questions of ancient technology. If accurate maps of ice-free Antarctica were created and preserved across millennia, they suggest sustained contact between surface civilizations and Antarctic regions throughout periods when the continent should have been uninhabitable. This continuity of knowledge implies not just ancient visitation, but ongoing relationship between surface cultures and whatever civilization might have persisted in Antarctic regions despite climatic changes. Recent discoveries in Antarctic ice cores have revealed atmospheric conditions that support the possibility of localized temperate zones even during periods of general glaciation. These findings suggest that while most of Antarctica became ice-covered thousands of years ago, certain regions may have maintained habitable conditions through geothermal activity or other warming mechanisms. Such temperate enclaves could have supported the continued existence of established settlements, maintaining the geographical knowledge that eventually influenced ancient map-making. The question becomes, what level of civilization could have survived Antarctic glaciation, while maintaining both the technology to create accurate continental maps and the means to transmit this knowledge to surface cultures? The answer suggests capabilities far exceeding what conventional archaeology attributes to ancient civilizations. Not just survival in hostile conditions, but technological sophistication that enabled detailed geographical surveys and sustained contact with distant cultures. Those who study these maps in the deep hours of night, when conventional explanations seem inadequate to account for such impossible knowledge, might consider a more unsettling possibility, that the geographical accuracy of these ancient charts reflects not historical knowledge, but contemporary observation. What if the maps show Antarctica ice-free not because they were created during a temperate period, but because they depict regions that remain temperate beneath the ice, maintained by civilizations that never left? The persistence of such detailed geographical knowledge across centuries, transmitted through cultures that had no direct contact with Antarctic regions, suggests a source of information that remained active throughout historical periods. Rather than ancient maps preserving historical observations, these charts might represent ongoing intelligence about conditions within Antarctica, transmitted by entities that maintained continuous presence in regions that surface explorers would later find impossibly hostile. The precision that modern analysis has revealed in these impossible maps points toward a mystery that extends far beyond questions of ancient navigation or lost civilizations. It suggests knowledge that has persisted unchanged across millennia, as if the observers who created the source materials never left their positions, never ceased their careful documentation of a continent that official history insists remained undiscovered until the 19th century. The persistent accuracy of these ancient maps raises a question that reaches beyond history into the realm of physics itself. Could vast inhabited spaces actually exist within our planet's structure? The notion seems to violate everything we understand about planetary geology, yet the mathematical precision of impossible cartography demands that we examine whether the earth beneath our feet might harbour secrets that conventional science has overlooked. In 1692, Edmund Halley, the astronomer whose name graces the famous comet, proposed a theory that challenged the assumed solidity of our planet. Observing irregularities in compass readings and magnetic field variations, Halley suggested that Earth consisted not of solid rock throughout, but of concentric spheres with hollow spaces between them. His calculations, based on gravitational and magnetic observations, indicated that these internal spaces could be vast enough to contain entire atmospheric systems, complete with their own sources of light and energy. Halley's theory wasn't mere speculation, but arose from careful observation of phenomena that existing geological models couldn't adequately explain. Magnetic declination variations across different regions suggested internal structures more complex than a simple, solid planetary mass. The aurora borealis, with its mysterious lights dancing across polar skies, seemed to originate from energies emanating from within the Earth, rather than from external cosmic sources. The concept gained scientific credibility through John Cleves Sims Jr., a former U.S. Army captain whose mathematical analysis of polar physics led him to propose what became known as Sims theory. In 1818, he published his conviction that Earth was hollow, habitable within, and accessible through openings at both poles. Simmies calculated that these polar openings would be approximately 4,000 miles in diameter, vast enough to allow entire weather systems to flow between the external and internal surfaces. Simmies' theory attracted attention not just from enthusiasts but from serious scientists and government officials. His proposals for polar expeditions to verify these openings reached the US Congress, where they were seriously considered before being tabled due to cost rather than scientific impossibility. The mathematical foundations of his work suggested internal spaces that could support atmospheric pressure, temperature regulation, and even gravitational fields that would allow normal habitation on the inner surface. Modern geological understanding has revealed that our planet's structure is indeed far more complex than early science assumed. Deep drilling projects have encountered vast cavern systems, underground rivers, and spaces that extend far beyond what surface topography would suggest. The deepest mines and boreholes have detected air currents, temperature variations, and acoustic properties that indicate connectivity to much larger spaces than the immediate excavated areas. Seismic analysis, the same technology used to map earthquake patterns and oil deposits, has revealed anomalous readings from polar regions that suggest large void spaces within the Earth's crust. These aren't small caves or natural caverns, but spaces that register on instruments as being comparable in size to surface geographical features, valleys, lakes, even mountain ranges that exist entirely within the planetary structure. The physics of such spaces presents fascinating possibilities rather than impossibilities. Gravitational forces within large hollow areas would create stable zones, where atmospheric pressure could be maintained at habitable levels. Geothermal energy from the Earth's core could provide consistent heating, while the insulating properties of surrounding rock and ice would maintain stable temperatures regardless of surface climate variations. Recent theoretical work in planetary geology has explored how massive internal cavities could form and persist within planetary bodies. Magma chamber collapse, tectonic shifting, and the differential cooling of planetary materials during formation could create void spaces of enormous size. These spaces wouldn't be simple hollow bubbles, but complex three-dimensional environments with their own topography, atmospheric circulation, and energy systems. The inner sun concept, long dismissed as fantasy, gains credibility when examined through modern plasma physics. The Earth's magnetic field originates from electromagnetic processes in the planet's core processes that could theoretically create plasma phenomena visible as light sources within large internal spaces. These wouldn't be nuclear fusion like our external sun, but plasma formations that could provide illumination for internal environments while remaining completely undetectable from the surface. Crystalline energy systems, once relegated to science fiction, now have scientific foundation in our understanding of piezoelectric effects and crystalline lattice structures. Large crystal formations within the Earth could theoretically convert geological pressure and magnetic field fluctuations into usable energy. Such systems would be completely renewable, drawing power from the planet's own geological processes without any external energy source requirements. The electromagnetic shielding properties of rock and ice create natural concealment from surface detection systems. Miles of dense geological material would effectively block most forms of electromagnetic radiation, making internal civilizations essentially invisible to satellite surveillance, radio detection, or other surface-based sensing technologies. Only the most sophisticated ground-penetrating systems would have any chance of detecting large internal structures, and even then, the readings could easily be interpreted as natural geological formations. Advanced civilizations within such spaces would possess inherent advantages that surface cultures lack: complete protection from external threats, stable environmental conditions unaffected by surface climate variations, abundant geothermal energy sources, and access to mineral resources that extend throughout the planet's geological structure. Such civilizations could theoretically achieve technological development far exceeding surface capabilities while remaining completely hidden from external observation. The question of access presents intriguing possibilities. If Simmer's calculations were correct, polar openings large enough to permit aircraft transit would be camouflaged by weather patterns, magnetic anomalies, and the extreme conditions that discourage exploration. Surface expeditions might pass within miles of such openings while remaining completely unaware of their existence, particularly if the internal civilization possessed technology capable of selective electromagnetic interference with surface navigation and detection equipment. Those listening now, perhaps in the quiet hours when conventional reality seems most fragile, might consider that the physics which governs our surface world represents only one layer of a much more complex planetary system. The mathematical precision of impossible ancient maps, the sustained secrecy surrounding polar expeditions, and the persistent reports of phenomena that conventional geology cannot explain all point toward the same unsettling conclusion. Our planet may harbour civilizations that have mastered sciences we have barely begun to understand. More intriguingly, electromagnetic readings from Lake Vostok indicate magnetic anomalies that suggest the presence of large metallic structures beneath the lake floor. These aren't random mineral deposits, but formations that create magnetic field patterns consistent with constructed objects of enormous size. Sonar mapping attempts have detected what appear to be geometric shapes on the lake bottom structures that rise from the lake floor in ways that natural sedimentation could not explain. The magnetic irregularities extend far beyond single locations. Across Antarctica, compass readings behave erratically in specific zones that seem to correspond with thermal anomalies and unexplained surface features. These magnetic ghosts, as researchers informally term them, create navigation problems that follow consistent geographical patterns. Aircraft flying over certain regions experience compass deviations that pull navigation instruments toward magnetic sources that shouldn't exist according to conventional geological surveys. Satellite magnetometry has mapped these anomalies with increasing precision, revealing magnetic field distortions that suggest vast underground metallic structures or electromagnetic systems operating beneath the ice. The patterns aren't random but show organization that implies purposeful arrangement. Some magnetic anomalies form geometric grids spanning hundreds of square miles. Others create concentric circles around thermal hotspots, as if the heat sources and magnetic fields are components of integrated systems. Seismic monitoring stations, originally installed to track earthquake activity, have recorded acoustic anomalies that suggest hollow spaces of extraordinary size beneath Antarctic regions. These aren't the simple cave echoes one might expect, but complex acoustic signatures that indicate chambered spaces with dimensions comparable to surface geographical features. Sound waves penetrating the ice reflect off surfaces that create acoustic maps, suggesting underground valleys, cavern systems with ceilings hundreds of feet high, and spaces that extend for dozens of miles in multiple directions. The most unsettling seismic readings come from instruments detecting rhythmic vibrations that appear artificial in origin. These aren't the random settling sounds of ice under pressure, but patterns that suggest machinery or systems operating deep within the ice. The rhythmic nature of these vibrations, their consistent timing and amplitude, points toward technological rather than natural sources. Research equipment deployed in these zones experiences malfunctions that follow predictable patterns. Electronic instruments fail selectively. Navigation systems lose accuracy while communication equipment continues functioning. Or thermal sensors provide readings that contradict visual observations, while other instruments operate normally. The selective nature of these malfunctions suggests interference rather than random equipment failure, as if something beneath the ice is capable of targeting specific types of technology while leaving others undisturbed. Ground-penetrating radar systems, when deployed over thermal and magnetic anomaly zones, produce readings that challenge interpretation. Instead of the clear geological stratification expected from ice and rock layers, these instruments detect spaces that appear as voids in their displays areas where radar signals simply don't return, as if they're being absorbed rather than reflected. These void spaces correspond precisely with surface thermal signatures and magnetic anomalies, creating a three-dimensional map of hidden structures that extends deep into the continental ice sheet. Personnel operating equipment in these zones report experiences that don't make it into official documentation. Instruments that function perfectly in laboratory conditions begin providing readings that seem impossible. Temperatures that fluctuate without corresponding environmental changes, magnetic readings that shift in patterns that suggest responsive rather than passive sources, and acoustic sensors that detect sounds with frequencies and patterns that seem too organized to be natural phenomena. The correlation between thermal, magnetic, and acoustic anomalies creates a picture of systematic activity beneath Antarctic ice. Rather than random geological processes, the evidence suggests coordinated systems operating on a scale that dwarfs any known human construction. These systems appear to generate heat, create powerful magnetic fields, and operate with mechanical precision that has remained consistent across decades of monitoring. Research teams working in anomaly zones describe environmental effects that conventional science struggles to explain. Localized weather patterns that seem to originate from beneath the ice rather than from atmospheric conditions. Areas where snowfall melts upon contact with the surface despite air temperatures well below freezing. Zones where electronic equipment displays readings suggesting electromagnetic fields, far more powerful than Earth's natural magnetic field should allow. Those who study these readings in the deep quiet of polar nights, when instruments detect phenomena that daylight observations somehow miss, encounter evidence of activity that challenges fundamental assumptions about Antarctica's supposed lifelessness. The thermal signatures pulse with rhythmic consistency, suggesting not random geological heating, but controlled energy systems. The magnetic anomalies shift in patterns that seem responsive to external observation, as if whatever creates these fields is aware of surface monitoring attempts and capable of adjusting its electromagnetic signature accordingly. The persistence of these anomalies across multiple decades of satellite observation suggests systems that are not only active, but stable over time periods that would challenge the endurance of any known technology. Yet the readings continue, the thermal sources maintain their output, the magnetic fields persist in their complex patterns, and the acoustic signatures echo from chambers that conventional geology insists cannot exist within solid continental ice sheets. The systematic evidence of thermal, magnetic, and acoustic activity beneath Antarctic ice raises the most profound question yet. How could an advanced civilization operate on such a massive scale while remaining invisible to our increasingly sophisticated surveillance systems? The answer lies not in the limitations of our technology, but in understanding concealment as an architectural principle, the deliberate design of civilization itself to exist within natural camouflage so perfect that detection becomes nearly impossible. Consider the inherent properties of Antarctica as a natural stealth system. 2 miles of dense ice creates electromagnetic shielding more effective than any artificially constructed barrier. Radio waves, satellite signals, and most forms of electronic surveillance are absorbed or deflected by this massive frozen barrier, creating a natural dead zone where even our most sensitive instruments struggle to penetrate. Any civilization that chose to establish itself beneath such protection would be essentially invisible to surface-based detection systems. But mere concealment isn't enough for operations on the scale suggested by the thermal and magnetic evidence. A civilization capable of generating continent-wide energy signatures would require infrastructure comparable to entire surface nations. Cities the size of European capitals, transportation networks spanning thousands of miles, industrial systems capable of supporting populations numbering in the millions. All of this would need to exist within the planetary structure, while leaving minimal surface traces. The engineering requirements for such concealment suggest technological capabilities far exceeding current human achievement. Environmental control systems would need to maintain habitable conditions across vast spaces, while drawing energy from renewable sources that produce no waste signatures detectable by surface monitoring. Atmospheric processing systems would need to manage air circulation, humidity, and temperature across cavern networks that could extend throughout entire continental regions. Geothermal energy systems offer the most plausible power source for such massive operations. The Earth's core provides virtually unlimited energy. but harnessing it requires technology capable of drilling to depths and managing thermal differentials that challenge current engineering capabilities. A civilization that had perfected geothermal extraction could theoretically draw power sufficient to operate continent-sized infrastructure while producing thermal signatures that surface instruments might interpret as natural geological phenomena. Crystalline energy matrices present even more intriguing possibilities. Recent advances in materials science have revealed that certain crystal structures can convert mechanical pressure, electromagnetic field fluctuations, and thermal variations into usable energy with extraordinary efficiency. Large-scale crystalline systems, integrated with geological formations, could theoretically provide power generation that draws from multiple natural sources simultaneously, while appearing to surface instruments as natural mineral deposits. The scale of infrastructure required suggests construction techniques that integrate artificial systems with natural geological features. Rather than building structures that would be detectable as artificial formations, advanced civilizations would likely develop architecture that enhances and extends natural cavern systems, creating living spaces that appear to geological surveys as natural void spaces. Construction materials would need to be indistinguishable from surrounding rock and ice formations while providing structural integrity for spaces large enough to contain entire cities. Transportation systems within such concealed civilizations would face unique engineering challenges. Traditional surface transportation methods would be inadequate for the distances and environmental conditions involved. Electromagnetic propulsion systems, using principles similar to magnetic levitation but adapted for three-dimensional movement through complex cavern networks, could provide rapid transit while producing magnetic field signatures that surface instruments might register as natural anomalies. The most sophisticated concealment would involve adaptive camouflage systems capable of responding to surface surveillance attempts. Electromagnetic field generators could create interference patterns that selectively disrupt specific types of sensors while leaving others undisturbed, creating the kind of selective equipment malfunctions reported by Antarctic research teams. Such systems would need to operate with precision that can distinguish between different types of surface technology and respond appropriately to avoid detection while maintaining operational security. Climate control on such a massive scale would require environmental management systems that could maintain temperate conditions across continental-sized spaces. Atmospheric circulation systems would need to manage air quality, temperature, and humidity, while preventing the kind of thermal leakage that would create obvious surface signatures. The thermal anomalies detected by satellite surveillance might represent controlled venting systems, carefully designed to release excess heat in patterns that appear natural to surface observers. Waste management in a concealed civilization would require closed-loop systems that produce no surface-detectable byproducts. Everything from organic waste to industrial byproducts would need to be processed, recycled, and reintegrated into the civilization's operational systems without creating surface traces that might indicate large-scale habitation. Such complete ecological integration would require technological sophistication that exceeds current environmental management capabilities. The most remarkable aspect of such concealment would be its self-maintaining nature. Systems designed to operate for centuries or millennia would need to be largely automated, capable of self-repair and adaptation without requiring surface resources or producing detectable maintenance activities. The consistency of thermal and magnetic signatures detected over multiple decades suggests systems that have achieved this level of operational independence. Communication systems within a concealed civilization would face the challenge of maintaining contact across vast distances while remaining undetectable to surface monitoring. Low-frequency electromagnetic transmission, using the Earth's geological structure as a natural waveguide, could provide communication networks that span continents while producing signals that surface instruments might interpret as natural electromagnetic phenomena. Agricultural systems would need to operate without sunlight, possibly using artificial illumination systems powered by geothermal or crystalline energy sources. Hydroponic and aeroponic food production, integrated with closed-loop ecological systems, could theoretically support large populations while requiring no surface agricultural footprint. Such systems would need to be completely self-sustaining, producing not just food but breathable air and processing all organic waste products. The coordination required for civilization-wide concealment suggests governance systems capable of maintaining operational security across millions of individuals while coordinating activities that span continental distances. Such coordination would require communication and decision-making systems that could function reliably across the vast scales involved while maintaining the disciplined operational security necessary to avoid surface detection. Those who contemplate these possibilities in the profound silence of night hours, when the scope of such undertakings becomes almost visible in its audacity, might consider that concealment on this scale represents not just engineering achievement, but evolutionary adaptation. A civilization that had perfected integration with planetary systems rather than exploitation of surface resources would possess advantages that extend far beyond mere invisibility. They would have achieved harmony with geological processes, energy systems that enhance rather than deplete natural resources, and operational security that makes them essentially immune to surface threats, while allowing them to observe and study surface civilizations with complete impunity. The architecture of such concealment would be invisible not because it doesn't exist, but because it has become indistinguishable from the natural world that conceals it. The ultimate expression of technological advancement integrated so perfectly with natural systems that detection becomes not just difficult, but conceptually impossible using the observation methods available to less advanced civilizations. The theoretical possibility of perfectly concealed civilizations beneath Antarctic ice gains unsettling credibility when examined alongside the extraordinary measures taken to control access to specific polar regions. Across Antarctica, military installations operate under classifications that exceed the secrecy levels of nuclear weapons facilities, maintaining restricted zones that have remained off-limits to civilian research for decades. These aren't temporary exclusions for scientific experiments or environmental protection. They represent permanent enforced isolation of areas whose true purposes remain hidden, even from personnel stationed at adjacent facilities. The official explanations for these installations focus on weather monitoring, communications relay systems, and logistical support for scientific research. Yet the resources committed to these facilities, personnel rotations that require the highest security clearances, construction projects that arrive as classified cargo, and operational budgets that disappear into black project funding suggest purposes far exceeding routine meteorological observation or research support. Personnel who have served at these installations describe operational procedures that seem designed more for containment than research. Multiple redundant security systems, communication protocols that bypass normal military channels, and duty assignments that rotate individuals through these positions without allowing them to develop comprehensive understanding of the facility's true functions. Most remarkably, these installations often include underground components that extend far deeper than surface activities would require, with access to subsurface areas restricted to personnel with clearances that exceed those required for most classified military operations. The restricted fly zones surrounding these installations create aerial exclusion areas that extend far beyond the physical footprint of surface facilities. Aircraft attempting to approach these zones, even on authorized scientific missions, are redirected by air traffic control systems that appear to have real-time awareness of approaching aircraft long before they should be visible on standard radar systems. These redirections often involve flight path changes that route aircraft around areas where no surface installations are visible, as if the restricted zones encompass features that exist entirely below ground level. Reports from personnel stationed at Antarctic facilities describe encounters with phenomena that extend far beyond normal duties or environmental conditions. Equipment readings that fluctuate without corresponding environmental changes, communication systems that receive transmissions from sources that shouldn't exist, and most unsettling, the persistent sense of being observed by entities that remain invisible but whose presence affects electronic systems and personnel behavior in consistent, measurable ways. The culture of silence surrounding these experiences involves non-disclosure agreements that extend far beyond standard military confidentiality requirements. Personnel sign documents that specifically address encounters with anomalous phenomena, non-standard entities, and technologies of undetermined origin. Language that suggests these installations expect their personnel to encounter things that official science insists don't exist. Violations of these agreements result not just in loss of security clearances, but in career destruction that extends into civilian employment, as if maintaining silence about Antarctic experiences is considered a matter of national security. Medical personnel stationed at these facilities report treating conditions that don't appear in standard military medical protocols. Exposure symptoms that seem related to electromagnetic fields far more powerful than any known human technology produces. Psychological effects consistent with contact with non-human intelligence, and most remarkably, cases where personnel return from duty assignments with knowledge and capabilities they didn't possess before deployment to Antarctic facilities. The coordination between different nations' Antarctic installations suggests international cooperation that extends far beyond the official scientific collaboration outlined in the Antarctic Treaty. Communication networks connect facilities operated by countries that maintain hostile relations in other contexts, sharing information and coordinating activities in ways that suggest common purpose rather than competitive national interests. This cooperation includes joint response protocols for anomalous contact situations and shared technology for monitoring and containing phenomena that official reports never acknowledge. Recent technological upgrades at these facilities include detection systems specifically designed to monitor subsurface activity, ground-penetrating radar networks, seismic monitoring arrays, and electromagnetic field sensors create comprehensive surveillance systems that focus not on surface threats, but on monitoring activity from below. These systems operate continuously, feeding data to analysis centers that process information using classification protocols that exceed those used for strategic nuclear monitoring. The most intriguing aspect of these installations is their apparent dual function as both monitoring stations and communication facilities. Equipment manifests include transmission systems capable of extremely low-frequency communication that can penetrate deep underground and through dense rock formations. These systems appear designed not just to detect subsurface activity, but to maintain ongoing communication with entities or facilities located far beneath the ice sheet. Personnel rotations at these facilities follow patterns that suggest exposure limits rather than normal duty cycles. Individuals are assigned for specific duration periods, after which they are transferred to non-Antarctic positions regardless of their performance or preference for continued polar service. Exit interviews for these personnel are conducted by psychological assessment teams rather than standard debriefing officers, focusing on mental health evaluation and memory consistency rather than operational reporting. The guardianship functions of these installations become apparent when examining their response protocols for unauthorized intrusions. Rather than standard military security measures, these facilities deploy containment and deterrent systems that seem designed to prevent specific types of encounters rather than general security breaches. Electronic warfare capabilities can selectively disable aircraft and ground vehicles without causing permanent damage, creating the impression of equipment failure rather than active intervention. Modern satellite surveillance systems that monitor these installations reveal construction activities that occur largely underground, with surface access points that appear temporary and are often filled and concealed after completion of subsurface work. Time-lapse satellite imagery shows patterns of activity that suggest ongoing construction or maintenance of extensive underground facilities, far exceeding what surface installations would require for their stated purposes. The technology deployed at these sites includes systems that don't appear in standard military procurement records, detection equipment that operates on principles not found in civilian scientific literature, communication systems that seem designed for contact protocols rather than standard military communication, and most remarkably, defensive systems that appear designed to establish boundaries between surface and subsurface territorial claims rather than protection from conventional threats. Those who study the patterns of these installations during the long polar nights, when the scope of their coordination becomes visible across the continent, recognize signatures of an operation that extends far beyond national military interests. These facilities represent the surface components of a monitoring and communication network that appears designed to manage ongoing contact between surface and subsurface civilizations while maintaining operational secrecy that has persisted across multiple generations of personnel and political leadership. The silent guardians of these forbidden territories maintain vigilance not against external enemies, but against the revelation of knowledge that would fundamentally transform human understanding of our planet and our place within it. Their effectiveness lies not in preventing discovery, but in controlling the pace and manner of revelation, ensuring that contact occurs according to protocols established by entities whose wisdom and patience far exceed the urgency of surface curiosity. The guardianship systems maintaining Antarctic secrecy face increasing challenges as advancing technology allows deeper penetration into the ice sheet, revealing structures that test the limits of natural explanation. Ground-penetrating radar systems, originally designed for geological surveys and resource exploration, have detected formations beneath the ice that display geometric precision, suggesting artificial rather than natural origin. These discoveries create a paradox for scientific institutions: acknowledge findings that challenge accepted understanding, or maintain silence about evidence that demands investigation. The geometric structures revealed through radar penetration appear as vast rectilinear formations that extend for dozens of miles in perfect straight lines, intersect at precise angles, and maintain consistent dimensions that natural geological processes rarely achieve. These formations exist at depths ranging from hundreds of feet to several miles beneath the surface, embedded within ice layers that allegedly formed over hundreds of thousands of years. The precision of their geometry suggests not accidental formation, but deliberate construction by entities possessing advanced understanding of structural engineering and long-term environmental stability. Satellite imagery analysis has revealed surface features that correspond with subsurface geometric structures, creating patterns visible from orbit that become more apparent when enhanced through digital processing techniques. These patterns appear as subtle variations in ice surface texture, coloration, and thermal properties that create designs spanning hundreds of square miles. Most remarkably, these surface patterns change over time in ways that suggest ongoing activity beneath the ice, rather than static geological formations. The most intriguing discoveries involve rectilinear formations that appear to be connected across vast distances, creating what resembles a continental infrastructure network buried beneath the ice sheet. Radar mapping reveals straight-line connections between widely separated geometric structures, maintained at consistent depths and widths that suggest purposeful transportation or communication networks. These connections often run beneath areas where surface travel would be impossible, linking structures separated by mountain ranges, crevasse fields, and other geographical barriers that would challenge even modern engineering projects. Research institutions with access to the most sophisticated ice-penetrating technology report findings that rarely appear in published scientific literature, structures that display internal complexity suggesting multiple levels, chambers, and connecting passages that create three-dimensional architectural systems entirely contained within the ice sheet. The scale of these structures rivals the largest human construction projects, yet they exist in locations where conventional engineering would face insurmountable logistical and environmental challenges. The challenge of verification in Antarctica's hostile environment creates opportunities for selective information release and controlled scientific access. Research expeditions require massive logistical support, international coordination, and equipment that few institutions can afford to deploy. This creates natural gatekeeping that allows controlling authorities to determine which discoveries receive independent verification and which remain accessible only to researchers operating under strict confidentiality agreements. Digital analysis of publicly available satellite imagery has revealed patterns that suggest systematic editing of images before public release. Geometric features visible in early satellite surveys of specific Antarctic regions disappear from later imagery of the same areas, replaced by surface patterns that appear artificially uniform. Time-lapse analysis of these edited regions shows surface changes that proceed in straight lines, perfect circles, and other geometric patterns that natural weathering processes would never create. Independent researchers with access to high-resolution satellite imagery have identified formations that display characteristics associated with constructed rather than natural origin. Perfect circles spanning miles in diameter, rectangular outlines that suggest building foundations of extraordinary size, and linear features that connect distant points with engineering precision that exceeds capabilities of known surface civilizations. These features often appear temporarily in satellite imagery before disappearing from public access databases, suggesting active monitoring and editing of publicly available information. The pattern recognition analysis of seemingly random ice formations reveals underlying geometric relationships that challenge assumptions about natural formation processes. Structures that initially appear to be random crevasse patterns or natural ice formations display mathematical relationships when analyzed through computer modeling. Spacing intervals that follow geometric progressions, angular relationships that repeat across vast distances, and orientation patterns that align with magnetic or astronomical references rather than random geographical features. Ground-based research teams using portable radar systems have detected subsurface structures that display internal architecture suggesting habitation or industrial use rather than simple void spaces. Chamber systems with consistent ceiling heights, connecting passages that maintain uniform dimensions across significant distances, and internal features that suggest artificial lighting or heating systems. These discoveries often result in immediate reclassification of research data and reassignment of personnel to non-Antarctic projects. The acoustic properties of structures beneath the ice create sound signatures that suggest hollow spaces far larger than natural cave systems typically achieve. Seismic analysis reveals echo patterns consistent with chambered spaces that extend for miles, possess multiple levels, and maintain acoustic properties that suggest artificial rather than natural formation. These sound signatures often include rhythmic elements that appear too regular to be natural phenomena, suggesting mechanical systems or activities occurring within the detected spaces. Electromagnetic anomalies associated with subsurface structures create interference patterns that suggest active systems rather than passive geological formations. These anomalies pulse in regular intervals, respond to changes in surface electromagnetic activity, and create field patterns that suggest sophisticated electromagnetic management systems operating beneath the ice. The technology required to generate such powerful and precisely controlled electromagnetic fields would exceed known human capabilities. Ice core analysis from areas above detected structures reveals atmospheric inclusions that contain gas compositions different from surrounding ice layers. These anomalies suggest that the atmosphere within subsurface structures has different chemical properties from surface atmosphere, indicating separate atmospheric systems that maintain different compositions over extended periods. Such atmospheric control would require technological systems capable of managing air quality on a massive scale. The most compelling evidence comes from structures that display signs of ongoing maintenance or modification. Radar surveys conducted years apart reveal changes in subsurface structures that suggest active construction, renovation, or expansion activities. These changes occur at depths and in conditions where natural processes would require centuries to produce comparable alterations, yet the modifications appear within timeframes measured in months or years. Research personnel who work with this evidence during the profound isolation of Antarctic field assignments describe a growing awareness that they are documenting the edges of something far larger than individual structures or isolated phenomena. The geometric precision, the interconnected networks, the signs of ongoing activity, and the sophisticated concealment methods all point toward evidence of systematic construction and habitation that operates according to principles that challenge fundamental assumptions about what exists beneath Antarctic ice. Those who analyze these patterns in the quiet hours before dawn, when conventional explanations seem most inadequate, recognize that they are mapping the boundaries of a civilization that has achieved integration with the planetary environment so complete that detection becomes possible only through the most advanced technological systems. The signs beneath the ice represent not ruins of ancient construction, but evidence of ongoing habitation by entities whose engineering capabilities and environmental harmony far exceed the achievements of surface civilizations. The accumulating evidence of vast structures beneath Antarctic ice raises a profound question that extends beyond archaeology or geology into the realm of contact. If advanced civilizations exist within our planet, what is their relationship with surface humanity? The answer emerges not from speculation, but from documented encounters that suggest ongoing observation, evaluation, and perhaps preparation for more direct interaction between worlds that have coexisted on the same planet while maintaining careful separation. Aircraft emerging from polar ice represent the most dramatic evidence of active subsurface presence. These craft, observed by research personnel, military pilots, and satellite surveillance systems, display flight characteristics that exceed known aerospace capabilities. They emerge from ice-covered areas where no surface installations exist, accelerate to speeds that challenge current understanding of propulsion physics, and execute maneuvers that suggest mastery of gravitational forces rather than conventional aerodynamic principles. The concentration of these sightings around established research stations suggests intentional observation rather than accidental encounters. Personnel stationed at Antarctic facilities report craft that appear to monitor surface activities with systematic thoroughness, maintaining positions that allow comprehensive surveillance of human operations while demonstrating awareness of surface observation attempts. These craft often adjust their behavior in response to surface actions, suggesting real-time evaluation of human activities and decision-making capabilities that indicate sophisticated intelligence analysis. Military radar systems designed to track conventional aircraft struggle to maintain consistent locks on these objects, which seem capable of selective interaction with electromagnetic detection systems. They appear on radar displays when they choose to be detected, vanish from instruments while remaining visually observable, and create radar signatures that suggest technologies operating on principles unknown to surface science. The selective nature of their detectability implies mastery of electromagnetic spectrum management that exceeds human technological development by generations. The flight patterns of these observed craft suggest purposeful routes rather than random exploration. They follow paths that correspond with subsurface geometric structures detected through ground-penetrating radar, creating three-dimensional maps that connect surface observation with underground infrastructure. These flight patterns often trace routes between different Antarctic regions, suggesting transportation networks that link subsurface facilities across continental distances. Communication attempts with these craft have produced responses that challenge understanding of both technology and consciousness. Radio transmissions directed toward observed craft sometimes receive responses that demonstrate awareness of surface languages, understanding of human technological capabilities, and most remarkably, knowledge of specific surface events and personnel that should be inaccessible to isolated civilizations. These communications suggest not just intelligence, but ongoing surveillance of surface civilization that extends far beyond Antarctic regions. The electromagnetic anomalies that accompany these encounters create interference patterns that seem designed to convey information, rather than simply disrupt surface systems. Personnel report equipment malfunctions that follow consistent patterns, display specific sequences of system failures and recoveries, and create data streams that, when analyzed carefully, contain mathematical relationships and geometric patterns that suggest purposeful communication attempts through technological interaction. Surface research teams describe encounters with entities that demonstrate intimate knowledge of human psychology, technology, and social organization. These interactions often involve beings of extraordinary height and bearing who communicate through methods that bypass conventional language while conveying complex concepts with precision that exceeds normal human communication capabilities. The content of these communications consistently addresses surface humanity's technological development, environmental impact, and readiness for broader cosmic responsibility. The timing of these encounters corresponds with significant developments in human technology, particularly advances in nuclear capability, electromagnetic systems, and space exploration. The pattern suggests evaluation criteria that assess surface civilization's technological maturity relative to its wisdom in applying potentially dangerous capabilities. Contact intensity appears to increase during periods when human technological development approaches threshold capabilities that could affect planetary stability. Personnel who experience these encounters report lasting effects that extend far beyond the immediate interaction. Enhanced intuitive capabilities, improved understanding of complex technical concepts, and most remarkably ongoing communication through dreams and meditative states that provide continuing contact with entities from subsurface civilizations. These ongoing communications often include guidance regarding technological development, environmental stewardship, and preparation for eventual open contact between surface and subsurface civilizations. The subsurface civilization's perspective on surface humanity appears to combine protective concern with careful evaluation. Their observations suggest entities that view surface civilization as a developing younger culture whose technological advancement requires careful monitoring to prevent self-destructive applications of potentially dangerous capabilities. This perspective implies responsibility for planetary stewardship that extends beyond their own subsurface territories to include oversight of surface civilization's development. Medical analysis of personnel who experience these encounters reveals physiological changes that suggest exposure to energy fields or environmental conditions that exceed normal human experience. Enhanced neural connectivity, improved immune system function, and cellular changes that appear to slow aging processes indicate that contact with subsurface civilizations involves exposure to technologies or environmental conditions that have beneficial effects on human physiology. The preparation protocols observed in these encounters suggest systematic evaluation of surface individuals for their potential roles in eventual broader contact. Personnel selected for more extensive interaction often possess psychological profiles indicating unusual stability under extreme circumstances, enhanced capacity for conceptual adaptation, and personality characteristics that suggest suitability for serving as intermediaries between very different types of civilization. Documentation of these encounters faces the same classification restrictions that apply to other aspects of Antarctic anomalous activity, yet patterns emerge from the accumulated accounts of personnel who have experienced various levels of contact. These patterns suggest systematic contact protocols that evaluate surface readiness for broader interaction while preparing selected individuals for eventual roles in facilitating understanding between civilizations whose technological and social development has proceeded along very different paths. The most profound aspect of these encounters involves the perspective they provide on surface civilization's development. Through the eyes of entities who have maintained stable technological civilization for periods measured in millennia, surface humanity's rapid technological development coupled with limited wisdom. Development appears as a potentially catastrophic trajectory that requires careful monitoring and occasional intervention to prevent outcomes that would affect not just surface civilization, but planetary stability itself. Those who have experienced these encounters during the deep silence of Antarctic night, when the boundaries between worlds seem most permeable, describe a profound shift in understanding of humanity's place within a larger cosmic community. They recognize that surface civilization exists within a framework of observation and evaluation by entities whose technological and spiritual development provides perspective on the long-term consequences of the choices that surface humanity makes regarding technology, environment, and social organization. The watchers and the watched exist in a relationship of mutual evaluation, with subsurface civilizations assessing surface readiness for broader contact, while surface individuals who experience these encounters develop understanding of the responsibility that comes with technological capability and the wisdom required for safe interaction with civilizations whose capabilities exceed current human comprehension. The contact between surface and subsurface civilizations reveals glimpses of an ecological achievement that challenges every assumption about survival in hostile environments. Beyond the geometric structures and advanced technologies lies evidence of something perhaps more remarkable: the creation of thriving ecosystems in the perpetual darkness beneath miles of ice, where life not only survives but flourishes in abundance that surpasses the richness of surface ecosystems. These discoveries suggest that the subsurface civilization has achieved harmony between technological advancement and ecological stewardship that represents evolution beyond humanity's current understanding of sustainable development. Thermal imaging of subsurface areas reveals heat signatures that correspond not just with industrial or residential activity, but with vast expanses that display temperature and energy patterns consistent with complex ecosystems. These thermal maps show variations that suggest diverse environmental zones, areas that maintain different temperature ranges, humidity levels, and atmospheric compositions, creating the kind of environmental diversity that supports complex food webs and ecological relationships. Personnel who have experienced deeper contact with subsurface environments describe atmospheric conditions that exceed surface air quality in ways that seem almost miraculous. Air that is not just breathable, but somehow enhanced richer in oxygen, yet balanced with other gases that create breathing experiences that improve rather than strain respiratory function. The atmospheric composition appears designed to support not just basic survival, but enhance vitality and extended lifespans for the beings who inhabit these spaces. The lighting systems within these environments represent perhaps the most elegant solution to the challenge of supporting life in perpetual darkness. Rather than harsh artificial illumination, personnel report bioluminescent systems that integrate living organisms with crystalline energy matrices to create lighting that closely mimics natural daylight cycles. These systems provide illumination that changes in intensity and spectral composition throughout regular cycles, maintaining the biological rhythms that surface life requires while drawing energy from renewable crystalline sources. Forest systems within subsurface environments defy conventional understanding of plant biology. Trees and other vegetation that somehow thrive without direct solar radiation, drawing energy from alternative sources that allow them to achieve sizes and vitality that rival the greatest surface forests. These plants often display bioluminescent properties, contributing to the environmental lighting while processing atmospheric gases in ways that maintain air quality for the broader ecosystem. The integration of vegetation with architectural systems creates living buildings where structural elements literally grow rather than being constructed from separate materials. Walls, ceilings, and support structures that develop from engineered plant systems, creating architectural spaces that possess the self-maintaining and adaptive properties of living organisms while providing the stability and functionality required for advanced civilization infrastructure. Agricultural systems within these environments achieve productivity levels that far exceed surface farming capabilities. Food production that occurs in vertical growing systems utilizing minimal space, while producing yields that could support large populations without depleting soil resources or requiring external inputs. These systems appear to operate as closed loops where waste products from food production are recycled into nutrients for continued growing, creating sustainable food systems that produce no waste products requiring disposal. Water management within subsurface environments demonstrates mastery of hydrological engineering that maintains abundant fresh water supplies despite being isolated from surface water sources. Underground rivers that flow through engineered channels, bringing water from deep aquifers, while maintaining water quality and temperature that support both industrial uses and ecological requirements. These water systems often integrate with the architectural and agricultural systems, providing irrigation, temperature regulation, and transportation networks simultaneously. The absence of scarcity within these environments appears to result from engineering systems that maximize resource utilization while minimizing waste production. Energy systems that provide abundant power without consuming finite resources, material recycling that recovers and reuses virtually all waste products, and resource distribution networks that ensure equitable access to necessities without creating shortages or requiring competitive resource acquisition. Waste management systems achieve complete recycling through biological and technological processes that break down all waste products into components that become inputs for other systems. Organic waste that gets processed through engineered biological systems to produce energy, nutrients, and raw materials for manufacturing. Industrial byproducts that are reprocessed through crystalline matrix systems that transform them into useful materials rather than waste requiring disposal. The social implications of abundance create civilization structures that operate without the resource competition that drives much of surface civilization conflict. Personnel who experience these environments describe social organizations that focus on creative development, technological advancement, and spiritual growth rather than resource acquisition or territorial control. The absence of survival pressure allows civilization to dedicate energy toward exploration, learning, and development rather than competition and conflict. Transportation within these environments utilizes magnetic levitation systems that provide efficient movement of people and materials without producing pollution or requiring fuel consumption. Transportation networks that connect different environmental zones allow inhabitants to experience diverse ecological conditions while maintaining the infrastructure necessary for technological civilization. These systems operate silently and efficiently while integrating with the broader electromagnetic systems that manage the environment's energy distribution. Manufacturing systems achieve production capabilities that exceed surface industrial output while producing no pollution or waste products. Material processing that utilizes crystalline energy matrices to transform raw materials into finished products through processes that enhance rather than degrade material properties. These manufacturing systems often integrate with the ecological systems, utilizing biological processes to grow materials and products rather than extracting and processing finite resources. The longevity of inhabitants in these environments suggests that the ecological conditions support lifespans that far exceed surface human experience. Environmental factors that reduce aging processes, enhance immune function, and maintain physical and mental vitality throughout extended lifespans. These effects appear to result from atmospheric composition, dietary systems, and environmental conditions that optimize human biology rather than simply sustaining basic survival. Cultural development within these environments focuses on achievements that utilize the inhabitants' extended lifespans and abundant resources for projects that span centuries or millennia. Technological research that can pursue long-term development goals without resource constraints. Artistic and philosophical projects that develop through generations of collaborative work, and scientific investigation that can dedicate centuries to understanding complex phenomena. The ecological systems maintain stability through sophisticated monitoring and management that utilizes both technological and biological feedback systems. Environmental conditions that remain consistent across long time periods while adapting to changing conditions and requirements. This stability allows for planning and development on timescales that exceed the capability of civilizations that must constantly respond to resource limitations and environmental instability. Those who have glimpsed these ecological paradises during their deepest encounters with subsurface civilizations describe environments that represent not just technological achievement, but evolutionary development that has transcended the limitations that constrain surface civilization. They witness ecosystems that demonstrate what becomes possible when technological capability serves ecological harmony rather than exploiting natural resources for short-term advantage. The profound implications of such ecological achievement suggest that the subsurface civilization has solved the fundamental challenges that threaten surface civilizations long-term, survival creating sustainable systems that provide abundance rather than managing scarcity, developing technology that enhances rather than degrades environmental conditions, and achieving social organization that focuses on development rather than competition for limited resources. The ecological abundance that flourishes beneath Antarctic ice raises fundamental questions about the civilization that has achieved such harmony between technology and natural systems. What kind of society could sustain itself in complete isolation for millennia while developing capabilities that exceed surface human achievement? The answers emerge from analysis of the infrastructure requirements, population dynamics, and social organization necessary to maintain advanced civilization in conditions that would challenge the survival of any known surface culture. Energy requirements for a subglacial civilization operating on continental scale would exceed the output of any known power generation system. Yet the thermal signatures detected through satellite monitoring suggest energy production that operates continuously without depleting finite resources or producing waste signatures that would indicate fuel consumption. The scale of energy generation implied by continent-wide thermal anomalies suggests mastery of planetary energy systems, tapping directly into the Earth's magnetic field, geothermal systems, and crystalline formations to create power sources that draw from the planet's own energy rather than consuming materials that require replacement. Geothermal extraction on the scale required would involve drilling and thermal management systems that exceed current surface engineering capabilities by orders of magnitude. The precision required to tap geothermal sources while maintaining environmental stability across vast underground spaces would require technological coordination that could manage thousands of individual energy extraction points while balancing thermal output to maintain consistent environmental conditions across different ecological zones. Food production systems capable of supporting large populations without surface agriculture would require agricultural technology that fundamentally reimagines food production efficiency. The closed-loop ecological systems described by contact personnel suggest agricultural output that could support population densities far exceeding what surface farming could achieve in equivalent space. Such productivity would require integration of biological and technological systems that optimize plant growth, soil management, and harvest processing to create food abundance rather than managing agricultural scarcity. Population estimates based on geological surveys of subsurface cavity systems suggest spaces that could support populations numbering in the millions. The extensive cavern networks detected through ground-penetrating radar indicate habitable volume that rivals the living space available in surface metropolitan regions. If these spaces were organized as efficiently as the ecological and technological systems suggest, they could support population densities that would create civilization comparable in size to major surface nations. The social organization required to maintain stability across such populations, while preserving operational security and technological advancement, would require governance systems that exceed the complexity of any known surface political structure. Coordination across continental distances while maintaining the unity of purpose necessary for technological development and environmental management would require communication and decision richness. Making systems that could function efficiently across vast scales while preserving individual development and cultural. Genetic isolation versus hybrid origins presents one of the most intriguing questions about subsurface civilization composition. Complete genetic isolation over thousands of years would create population bottlenecks that could threaten long-term viability. Yet evidence suggests vigorous, healthy populations with extended lifespans and enhanced capabilities. This paradox suggests either genetic management techniques that maintain diversity within isolated populations or ongoing genetic exchange with surface populations through selective contact and integration programs. The hybrid origin possibility suggests that subsurface civilizations may have developed through integration of surface human populations with entities of different genetic heritage. Contact personnel often describe beings whose physical characteristics exceed normal human ranges, extraordinary height, enhanced physical capabilities, and most remarkably apparent lifespans that extend far beyond typical human experience. Such characteristics could result from genetic integration that combines human adaptability with genetic heritage from entities whose biological development proceeded along different evolutionary paths. Social organization adapted to isolated stability would require cultural systems that maintain social cohesion and individual development without the external pressures that drive much of surface civilization change. Personnel who experience these societies describe social structures that focus on long-term development goals rather than responding to immediate resource or security pressures. Such stability would require social institutions that could maintain purpose and direction across generations, while providing individual fulfillment without the competitive dynamics that characterize surface societies. Conflict resolution within isolated populations would require social mechanisms that prevent the kind of divisive disputes that could threaten civilization stability when external alternatives don't exist. The social harmony described by contact personnel suggests mechanisms for managing disagreement and resource allocation that transcend the competitive approaches that surface civilizations typically employ. Such social technology would be as sophisticated as the physical technologies that maintain their environmental systems. Educational systems within subsurface civilizations would need to preserve and advance knowledge across extended lifespans, while providing individual development opportunities that maintain social vitality. The accumulated knowledge base of a civilization that has maintained stability for millennia would require educational approaches that could transmit vast amounts of information while encouraging continued innovation and individual contribution to collective knowledge. Technology evolved for harmony rather than conquest would develop along fundamentally different pathways from surface technology development. Rather than tools designed to overcome environmental challenges through force, subsurface technology appears designed to work with natural systems to achieve desired outcomes through cooperation with planetary processes. This approach would require technological philosophy that views engineering as partnership with natural forces rather than domination of environmental conditions. Manufacturing systems that produce abundance without waste would require complete reimagining of production processes. Rather than extracting raw materials, processing them through energy-intensive methods, and producing waste byproducts, subsurface manufacturing appears to work with natural material formation processes to create desired products through enhancement of natural systems rather than replacement with artificial alternatives. The integration of biological and technological systems suggests technological development that enhances rather than replaces natural processes. Living architecture that grows and maintains itself, manufacturing systems that utilize biological processes for material transformation, and energy systems that work with planetary electromagnetic and thermal systems rather than consuming fuel resources. Such technology would be fundamentally regenerative rather than extractive. Research and development within subsurface civilizations would benefit from extended lifespans and resource abundance to pursue technological advancement as intellectual exploration rather than response to survival pressures. Scientific investigation that could dedicate centuries to understanding complex phenomena. Technological development that could pursue long-term goals without immediate practical applications, and philosophical development that could explore questions of existence and consciousness without the urgency that drives surface intellectual development. Cultural development within abundance-based societies would focus on achievements that utilize rather than seek resources for creative expression, intellectual advancement, and spiritual development. Art, music, literature, and philosophical investigation that could develop through generations of collaborative work, creating cultural achievements that exceed the scope possible within resource-limited societies. The psychological and spiritual development possible within societies that have transcended survival pressures would allow individual growth that focuses on consciousness expansion, wisdom development, and understanding of cosmic relationships rather than competition for limited resources or status positions. Such development would create individuals whose capabilities and perspective exceed typical surface human experience. Those who study these civilization profiles during the deep contemplative hours when the scope of such achievement becomes almost visible, recognize that they are examining evidence of evolutionary development that transcends the limitations that constrain surface civilization. The subsurface societies represent not just technological advancement, but social and spiritual evolution that demonstrates what becomes possible when intelligence serves harmony rather than conquest, when technology enhances rather than exploits natural systems, and when social organization focuses on development rather than competition for scarce resources. The profiles that emerge suggest civilizations that have achieved the goals that surface humanity struggles toward: environmental sustainability, social harmony, technological advancement that serves rather than threatens life, and individual development that contributes to rather than competes with collective welfare. These achievements represent not impossible fantasy, but evolutionary potential that demonstrates what human civilization could become if it transcended the limitations that currently constrain surface development. The sophisticated civilization profiles emerging from subsurface Antarctic encounters gain historical context through theories that challenge accepted understanding of both human history and geological timelines. The possibility that advanced civilizations currently exist beneath Antarctic ice becomes more compelling when examined alongside evidence suggesting that such civilizations might represent survivors of catastrophic events that reshaped our planet's geography within human historical memory rather than geological deep time. Graham Hancock's research into advanced prehistoric civilizations provides crucial framework for understanding how sophisticated societies could have survived catastrophic climate changes that destroyed surface civilizations while leaving archaeological traces too scattered for conventional historical interpretation. His analysis of megalithic construction techniques, astronomical knowledge embedded in ancient architecture, and global distribution of similar technological capabilities suggests civilizations that possessed advanced knowledge before recorded history knowledge that could have survived cataclysmic events through populations that retreated to protected environments. Charles Hapgood's crustal displacement theory offers a mechanism by which temperate Antarctic regions could have shifted to polar positions within timescales measured in thousands rather than millions of years. Hapgood's calculations, endorsed by Albert Einstein before Einstein's death, suggest that accumulating ice masses at polar regions could create gravitational imbalances sufficient to trigger rapid crustal shifts that would move entire continental regions thousands of miles within relatively short periods, transforming temperate zones into frozen wasteland within centuries. The geological evidence supporting recent temperate climates in Antarctica challenges conventional dating of ice formation and suggests that significant portions of the continent experienced habitable conditions within human historical memory. Ice core analysis reveals atmospheric compositions that indicate temperate conditions far more recently than standard geological models predict. Sediment layers beneath the ice contain pollen, organic materials, and geological formations that suggest temperate ecosystems existed when human civilizations were already establishing advanced cultures in other regions of the world. Plato's account of Atlantis, when analyzed without the assumption that it represents mythology rather than historical record, describes a civilization whose technological capabilities, geographical location, and catastrophic destruction align remarkably with what subsurface Antarctic civilizations would have required before polar shift events transformed their environment. The scale of Atlantean civilization described by Plato territories spanning continents, technological capabilities including powered flight, and social organization that maintained stability across vast populations matches the infrastructure requirements that subsurface Antarctic civilizations would need to survive in their current environment. The timeline of catastrophic pole shifts correlates with historical records from multiple cultures describing global cataclysms that destroyed advanced civilizations while forcing survivors to reconstruct society from scattered populations. Egyptian, Mesopotamian, Hindu, and Native American traditions describe periods when the sky fell, the earth turned over, and advanced civilizations disappeared beneath rising waters or advancing ice. These accounts, when analyzed collectively, suggest global catastrophic events that occurred within human historical memory rather than prehistoric geological time. The survival strategy that would be required for advanced civilizations facing catastrophic polar shifts would involve rapid construction of protected environments capable of maintaining technological civilization through extended periods of surface uninhabitability. Populations that possess sufficient advance warning and technological capability could theoretically construct underground facilities designed to maintain civilizational continuity while surface conditions remained hostile. Such facilities would need to be completely self-sustaining and capable of supporting large populations through centuries of isolation. Archaeological evidence from multiple continents supports theories of advanced prehistoric civilizations that possess technological capabilities exceeding conventional understanding of ancient human achievement. Megalithic construction that demonstrates precision stone cutting and lifting capabilities that challenge current engineering understanding, astronomical alignments that require sophisticated mathematical and observational knowledge, and global distribution of similar architectural techniques that suggest coordinated technological development across vast distances. The survivors adapting to the new frozen world would face challenges that would require technological innovation beyond surface civilization capabilities, maintaining energy systems without access to surface resources, creating food production without traditional agriculture, and developing transportation and communication systems that could function in completely frozen environments. The technological development required for such adaptation would need to advance far beyond the capabilities that the original civilization possessed before the catastrophic changes. Genetic bottleneck management would be crucial for isolated populations maintaining viable civilization over extended periods. Advanced understanding of genetics would be necessary to prevent the kind of genetic degradation that typically affects small isolated populations. This genetic management capability could explain the enhanced physical characteristics observed in subsurface beings, genetic optimization techniques that not only maintain genetic diversity, but enhance human physical and mental capabilities beyond typical surface human ranges. Cultural preservation and advancement within isolated conditions would require educational and social systems that could maintain civilizational knowledge while continuing innovation and development despite complete isolation from external cultures. The intellectual and cultural achievements that surface civilization has developed through contact between different societies would need to be replaced by internal social mechanisms that maintain cultural vitality across extended periods without external stimulation. Technological advancement under resource constraints would force development along pathways that maximize efficiency while minimizing resource consumption. Technologies that work with natural systems rather than consuming finite resources, manufacturing processes that achieve complete recycling, and energy systems that tap renewable planetary sources rather than depleting material fuel resources. Such technological development would create capabilities that exceed surface civilization achievement while operating within closed system constraints. The decision to maintain concealment from surface civilizations would involve careful evaluation of surface civilization development and judgment about appropriate timing for renewed contact. Advanced civilizations that survived previous catastrophic periods would possess historical perspective on the long-term consequences of technological development without corresponding wisdom development. Their evaluation of surface civilization would assess readiness for technological gifts that could either enhance or destroy surface civilization depending on the wisdom with which they are applied. Preparation for eventual contact would require both surface and subsurface civilizations to develop understanding and capabilities that would allow beneficial interaction rather than the kind of destructive contact that historical precedent suggests occurs when civilizations of vastly different technological capabilities interact without adequate preparation on both sides. The Atlantis-Antarctica connection provides historical context that transforms speculation about subsurface civilizations from fantasy into plausible explanation for evidence that conventional science struggles to address. The possibility that sophisticated civilization survived catastrophic polar shifts by retreating to protected subsurface environments, offers explanation for the technological signatures, biological anomalies, and organized infrastructure that satellite surveillance and deep ice penetration have detected beneath Antarctic ice. Those who explore these historical connections during the profound quiet of deep night hours, when the scope of geological and civilizational time becomes almost tangible, may recognize that they are tracing the survival story of human potential that transcended catastrophic destruction through wisdom, technological capability, and social organization that enabled civilizational continuity despite environmental collapse that destroyed surface world civilizations. The connection between Atlantean achievement and Antarctic survival represents not just historical curiosity, but demonstration of human civilizational potential that could guide surface civilization development toward wisdom and capability that would ensure survival through whatever catastrophic challenges may await our own technological development and environmental management choices. The historical survival of advanced civilizations through catastrophic polar shifts would have required technological development that transcended the limitations constraining surface civilization capabilities. Evidence from subsurface encounters suggests that isolation and resource constraints forced technological evolution along pathways that achieved capabilities surface science considers theoretically impossible, while operating within principles that work with rather than against natural planetary systems. Crystalline energy matrices represent perhaps the most elegant solution to the energy requirements of isolated civilizations. Rather than consuming fuel resources that would eventually deplete within closed systems, crystalline energy extraction utilizes the Earth's own electromagnetic field fluctuations, geological pressure variations, and thermal differentials to generate power through crystalline structures that convert planetary energy into usable electrical current. These systems would operate indefinitely without consuming finite resources, while producing power output that could support continental-scale infrastructure, without creating the waste signatures that characterize surface energy generation. The scale of crystalline energy systems detected through electromagnetic anomaly mapping suggests installations that exceed the size of surface power generation facilities, while operating with complete environmental integration. Crystalline matrices that extend through geological formations across hundreds of square miles, converting natural geological processes into electrical energy, while enhancing rather than disrupting natural systems. Such energy systems would be completely renewable, drawing power from planetary processes that operate on geological timescales, while providing immediate electrical output for technological infrastructure. Anti-gravity systems utilizing planetary magnetic field manipulation would provide transportation and construction capabilities that exceed surface technological achievement by several orders of magnitude. Rather than fighting gravitational forces through brute force propulsion that requires massive fuel consumption, magnetic field manipulation systems could create localized gravitational effects that enable objects to move through three-dimensional space with minimal energy expenditure while achieving speeds and maneuverability that conventional propulsion systems cannot match. The physics of magnetic field manipulation for anti-gravity effects requires understanding of electromagnetic relationships that surface science has barely begun to explore. Localized magnetic field generation that interacts with planetary magnetic fields to create gravitational nullification or directional gravitational effects would require precision electromagnetic control that could adjust magnetic field strength, direction, and frequency in real-time response to desired movement patterns. Transportation systems utilizing anti-gravity principles could move through the complex three-dimensional networks of subsurface cavern systems with efficiency and speed that would make vast underground territories as accessible as surface regions. Personnel and cargo could be transported across continental distances through underground networks within timeframes that would make subsurface civilizations effectively more connected than surface civilizations, despite the challenging three-dimensional geography of underground transportation. Material science achievements within subsurface civilizations suggest mastery of material properties that enable construction of self-repairing structures and living architecture that maintains and improves itself over extended periods without external maintenance inputs. Materials that respond to stress by strengthening affected areas, structural systems that grow and adapt to changing requirements, and building materials that incorporate biological processes to maintain optimal performance characteristics through self-monitoring and self-correction systems. Living architecture represents integration of biological and technological systems that creates building materials possessing the adaptive and self-maintaining characteristics of living organisms, while providing the structural stability and functional capabilities required for advanced technological infrastructure. Buildings that literally grow according to design specifications, maintain themselves through biological processes, and adapt their characteristics in response to changing environmental conditions or functional requirements. The integration of consciousness with technological systems suggests development of human-machine interfaces that exceed current understanding of both consciousness and technology. Rather than mechanical interfaces that require conscious control of technological systems, consciousness-integrated technology would respond directly to thought, intention, and even unconscious desires to provide technological capability that operates as naturally as biological functions while achieving results that exceed biological limitations. Such consciousness technology integration would require understanding of consciousness itself that enables technological systems to interface directly with human neural processes, thought patterns, and even unconscious mental activity. Technology that could respond to mental commands with precision and reliability, that would make technological capability feel like enhanced natural ability rather than external tool manipulation. The applications of consciousness integrated technology would extend from simple device control to complex environmental management that responds to inhabitant needs without conscious direction. Environmental systems that maintain optimal temperature, humidity, lighting, and atmospheric conditions based on unconscious comfort preferences. Transportation systems that provide desired destinations based on intention rather than explicit instruction. And communication systems that facilitate direct mind-to-mind contact across vast distances. Manufacturing systems that integrate consciousness control would be capable of creating desired objects through direct mental specification of required characteristics. Rather than designing objects through mechanical processes, consciousness-integrated manufacturing could produce items based on mental visualization of desired form, function, and performance characteristics, creating custom materials and objects that match precise mental specifications. Transportation through ice tunnels utilizing magnetic levitation principles would provide rapid movement through subsurface networks while requiring minimal energy consumption and producing no environmental impact on surrounding ice formations. Magnetic levitation transportation that could achieve high speeds through tunnels carved in ice would require magnetic field control that could maintain levitation while providing propulsion and guidance through complex three-dimensional tunnel networks. The engineering required for ice tunnel transportation would involve creating tunnel networks that maintain structural stability within ice formations, while providing smooth transportation routes that could connect different subsurface facilities across continental distances. Ice tunnel construction would require techniques that could carve precise tunnels while maintaining ice formation integrity and preventing tunnel collapse under the massive pressure of surrounding ice formations. Magnetic levitation systems operating within ice tunnels would need to function reliably in extreme temperature conditions, while maintaining precise magnetic field control that could provide smooth, high-speed transportation without creating electromagnetic interference that would disrupt other technological systems. Such transportation would be completely silent and produce no emissions while providing transportation efficiency that would exceed surface transportation capabilities. The technological integration achieved by subsurface civilizations suggests development pathways that maximize technological capability while minimizing resource consumption and environmental impact, rather than the extractive, consumptive technological development that characterizes surface civilization. Subsurface technology appears to enhance natural systems while achieving capabilities that exceed what surface science considers possible within known physical laws. Those who study these technological achievements during the deep hours when conventional limitations seem most arbitrary recognize that they are examining evidence of human technological potential that transcends the constraints that surface civilization accepts as unchangeable natural laws. The technologies developed through isolation and resource constraints demonstrate that advancement can occur through harmony with natural systems rather than domination of environmental conditions, achieving capabilities that exceed brute force approaches through elegant integration with planetary processes and consciousness itself. The advanced technologies that enabled subsurface civilizations to survive catastrophic polar shifts would be meaningless without systems to preserve and transmit the accumulated knowledge that represents humanity's true heritage. Beyond the crystalline energy matrices and consciousness-integrated systems lies perhaps the most profound achievement. The preservation of complete human history spanning millennia before recorded surface civilization, maintained through information storage and transmission methods that exceed surface understanding of both memory and knowledge itself. Archives preserving pre-cataclysm human history suggest information storage capabilities that dwarf the capacity of any known surface data systems. Rather than mechanical storage that requires physical media and external power sources, subsurface archives appear to utilize crystalline matrix systems that store information within the atomic structure of specially designed crystal formations. These crystalline archives would be essentially eternal, maintaining perfect information integrity across unlimited time periods while requiring no external energy to preserve stored knowledge. The scope of historical information preserved within these archives challenges every assumption about human civilizational development. Personnel who have experienced access to deep archive systems describe historical records spanning tens of thousands of years, documenting advanced human civilizations that achieved technological and spiritual development far exceeding anything recorded in surface historical accounts. These archives contain complete records of technological development, cultural achievement, and social organization for civilizations that existed before the catastrophic events that reshaped planetary geography and climate. Living libraries represent perhaps the most remarkable information preservation system. Individuals whose consciousness has been enhanced to carry vast amounts of knowledge accessible through direct mental interface. Rather than external information storage requiring mechanical access systems, living libraries consist of individuals whose memory and consciousness capabilities have been expanded to contain libraries worth of information that can be accessed through thought-based communication. These individuals serve as walking repositories of knowledge that spans multiple areas of expertise, while maintaining complete accessibility through consciousness interface. The development of living library capabilities would require enhancement of human memory and consciousness that enables individuals to store, organize, and access knowledge with precision that exceeds mechanical data systems while maintaining the flexibility and intuitive understanding that mechanical systems cannot provide. Such individuals would possess perfect recall of vast amounts of information while maintaining the wisdom and understanding necessary to apply stored knowledge appropriately to specific situations and questions. Crystal matrices storing information accessible through thought represent integration of consciousness technology with information storage that enables direct mental access to archived knowledge without mechanical interface systems. Rather than requiring physical interaction with storage devices, consciousness-accessible crystal systems would respond directly to mental queries by providing requested information through direct thought transmission. Such systems would make accumulated knowledge as accessible as personal memory while maintaining perfect accuracy and comprehensive coverage. The information storage capacity of crystalline consciousness interface systems would exceed the limitations of biological memory while maintaining the associative and intuitive access patterns that make biological memory superior to mechanical data systems. Crystal matrices could theoretically store unlimited amounts of information while providing instant access through thought patterns, making vast archives as readily accessible as immediate personal knowledge. The complete record of surface civilizations' rise and fall preserved within deep archives would provide perspective on human development patterns that spans multiple cycles of technological advancement and cultural collapse. Such historical perspective would reveal patterns in human civilizational development that enable prediction of long-term consequences for specific technological and social choices. This knowledge would be invaluable for guiding surface civilization development, while avoiding the mistakes that led to previous civilizational collapses. Historical records documenting complete cycles of human technological development would reveal the relationship between technological capability and wisdom development that determines whether civilizations achieve stable advancement or self-destruct through misapplication of powerful technologies. Such records would contain detailed analysis of the social, psychological, and spiritual development required to safely manage advanced technological capabilities without triggering the kind of catastrophic conflicts that destroyed previous advanced civilizations. Knowledge too dangerous for unprepared minds presents the most challenging aspect of information preservation and transmission. Advanced civilizations would possess technological and spiritual knowledge that could be either profoundly beneficial or catastrophically destructive depending on the wisdom and maturity of those who receive such knowledge. Information storage systems would need to incorporate safeguards that prevent access to dangerous knowledge by individuals or civilizations that lack the wisdom necessary for responsible application. Consciousness-based access control would enable information systems to evaluate the mental, emotional, and spiritual development of individuals seeking access to specific knowledge areas. Rather than mechanical security systems that can be circumvented through technical skill, consciousness-based systems would assess the actual readiness and wisdom of potential knowledge recipients before providing access to information that could be misused by unprepared minds. The ethical frameworks governing knowledge preservation and transmission would require sophisticated understanding of the relationship between knowledge and wisdom, technological capability and spiritual development, individual growth and collective responsibility. Such frameworks would need to balance the benefits of preserved knowledge against the risks of providing powerful information to individuals or civilizations that lack adequate preparation for responsible application. Knowledge preservation systems would also maintain complete records of the consequences of previous knowledge transmission attempts, documenting both successful knowledge transfers that enhanced recipient civilizations and failed transfers that resulted in knowledge misuse and civilizational destruction. Such records would provide guidance for current knowledge transmission decisions while revealing patterns that indicate appropriate timing and methods for sharing advanced knowledge with developing civilizations. The psychological and spiritual preparation required for access to deep knowledge would involve development of wisdom, emotional stability, and ethical understanding that ensures advanced knowledge serves beneficial purposes rather than satisfying curiosity or personal ambition. Such preparation might require years or decades of development that demonstrates readiness for responsibility that comes with access to knowledge that could transform entire civilizations. Educational systems within subsurface civilizations would need to balance knowledge transmission with wisdom development, ensuring that technological and scientific advancement proceeds alongside ethical and spiritual growth that maintains appropriate relationship between capability and responsibility. Such education would focus on understanding consequences and developing judgment, rather than simply accumulating information or technical skills. The gradual revelation protocols governing knowledge transmission would carefully control the pace at which advanced knowledge is made available to ensure that recipients have adequate time to integrate and understand each level of knowledge before receiving more advanced information. Such protocols would prevent the kind of knowledge overload that could result in misunderstanding or misapplication of powerful information. Those who study these knowledge preservation systems during the quiet hours when the scope of preserved human heritage becomes almost tangible recognize that they are encountering evidence of educational and informational achievements that represent the highest development of human consciousness and technology working in perfect harmony. The keepers of deep memory maintain not just historical records, but the complete potential of human development preserved through catastrophic periods and made available to guide future civilizational growth toward wisdom rather than mere technological advancement. The preservation of complete human knowledge across catastrophic periods suggests that the destruction of surface civilizations need not mean the loss of human achievement. Instead, such preservation demonstrates that consciousness itself can transcend physical destruction while maintaining continuity of development that enables each new cycle of civilizational growth to build upon rather than repeat the learning of previous human achievement. The vast archives of preserved knowledge maintained by subsurface civilizations gain practical significance through evidence of systematic contact with surface cultures throughout recorded history. Rather than remaining in complete isolation, the keepers of deep memory appear to have maintained selective interaction with surface humanity, providing guidance and knowledge at crucial moments in civilizational development, while carefully controlling the pace and scope of information transfer to prevent the kind of catastrophic misuse that destroyed previous advanced civilizations. Ancient accounts of polar teachers and wisdom bearers appear throughout diverse surface cultures in ways that suggest actual contact rather than mythological imagination. Greek texts describe Hyperboreans beings from the far north who possessed advanced knowledge and periodically visited surface civilizations to provide instruction in mathematics, astronomy, and spiritual development. These accounts describe beings of extraordinary height and longevity who arrived from regions beyond the reach of normal human travel, bringing knowledge that enabled significant advances in Greek scientific and philosophical understanding. Hindu scriptures contain detailed descriptions of beings from Shambhala who emerged from hidden northern realms to provide guidance during periods of civilizational crisis. These accounts describe entities who possessed technology that enabled rapid travel across vast distances, knowledge of future events that allowed them to provide warnings about impending disasters, and wisdom regarding the proper relationship between technological development and spiritual growth. The precision and consistency of these accounts across multiple texts suggest historical encounters rather than religious mythology. Celtic traditions preserve memories of the Tuatha De Danann advanced beings who came from northern islands shrouded in mist, bringing 4 magical treasures that represented mastery of energy, knowledge, abundance, and transformation. Archaeological evidence from Celtic regions includes artifacts that display manufacturing precision and material properties that exceed the technological capabilities that conventional archaeology attributes to Celtic civilizations, suggesting actual contact with entities possessing advanced manufacturing capabilities. Native American oral histories from multiple tribes describe star people and underground dwellers who emerge from the earth to provide instruction during times of great change. These accounts often specify polar regions as the origin points for these teachers, describe beings who could manipulate weather patterns and geological processes, and detail knowledge transfers that enabled tribes to survive environmental catastrophes through techniques that exceeded normal survival capabilities. Modern encounters with beings from the deep ice follow patterns that suggest continuation of historical contact protocols adapted to current technological and social conditions. Personnel at Antarctic installations report meetings with entities who demonstrate intimate knowledge of current surface civilization development, express specific concerns about technological applications that could threaten planetary stability, and provide guidance regarding development paths that could enable surface civilization to achieve sustainability rather than self-destruction. These modern encounters often involve beings who identify themselves as representatives of civilizations that survived previous catastrophic periods and maintain responsibility for monitoring and guiding surface civilization development. Such entities describe their role as temporary guardians, whose intervention becomes necessary when surface civilizations approach technological capabilities that could either enable transcendence to higher development levels or trigger catastrophic destruction, similar to previous civilizational collapses. The pattern of intervention during surface world crises reveals systematic evaluation and response protocols that suggest sophisticated understanding of civilizational development patterns. Historical analysis reveals increased contact activity during periods preceding major technological breakthroughs, environmental catastrophes, and social transformations that fundamentally altered surface civilization trajectories. Such timing suggests predictive capabilities that enable intervention at moments when guidance could be most beneficial for long-term civilizational stability. Contact intensification during periods of technological transition appears designed to provide wisdom that enables surface civilizations to integrate new capabilities with appropriate ethical and spiritual understanding. The development of atomic energy, electronic communication systems, and space exploration technologies all coincided with increased reports of contact with entities possessing advanced knowledge of the applications and consequences of such technologies. Seeding knowledge through dreams, visions, and direct contact represents sophisticated information transmission methods that bypass normal educational and communication systems to provide knowledge directly to individuals who demonstrate appropriate readiness and capability for receiving advanced information. Such knowledge transmission often involves scientific and technological insights that enable breakthrough discoveries while maintaining plausible deniability regarding the source of such insights. Visionary experiences reported by scientists, inventors, and spiritual teachers throughout history often contain knowledge and insights that exceed the individual's previous education and experience, suggesting external knowledge sources rather than purely personal inspiration. The consistency and practical applicability of such visionary knowledge implies systematic information transmission from entities possessing advanced understanding of scientific and spiritual principles. Direct contact experiences involving detailed technical information, predictions of future events that subsequently prove accurate, and guidance regarding complex social and environmental challenges suggest interaction with entities whose knowledge and perspective exceed normal human capabilities. Such contacts often include instruction regarding the proper timing and methods for implementing advanced knowledge to ensure beneficial rather than destructive applications. The readiness protocol measuring surface world maturity appears to evaluate multiple factors, including technological development, social organization, environmental stewardship, and spiritual ethical growth to determine appropriate levels of knowledge transmission and contact intensity. Such evaluation would require sophisticated understanding of the relationship between different aspects of civilizational development and their implications for successful integration of advanced knowledge. Technological readiness assessment would evaluate whether surface civilizations possess sufficient understanding of scientific principles to integrate advanced knowledge without creating unintended consequences that could threaten civilizational stability. Social readiness evaluation would assess whether surface societies have developed adequate cooperation and conflict resolution capabilities to prevent advanced knowledge from triggering destructive competition or warfare. Environmental stewardship assessment would evaluate whether surface civilizations have developed sustainable relationships with planetary systems that indicate readiness for technologies that could either enhance or destroy environmental stability. Spiritual and ethical development evaluation would assess whether surface cultures have developed wisdom and moral understanding sufficient to ensure that advanced capabilities serve beneficial purposes rather than satisfying destructive impulses. The integration of readiness factors suggests evaluation criteria that assess civilizational development holistically, rather than focusing on any single aspect of advancement. Such comprehensive evaluation would ensure that contact and knowledge transmission occur only when surface civilizations demonstrate balanced development that indicates capacity for responsible application of advanced knowledge. Contact protocols appear designed to provide maximum beneficial impact while minimizing risks associated with premature knowledge transmission. Selective contact with individuals who demonstrate appropriate preparation and capability, gradual revelation that allows time for integration and understanding, and ongoing monitoring that enables adjustment of contact intensity based on recipient response and development. Those who study these historical contact patterns during the profound silence of deep night, when the continuity of guidance across millennia becomes almost visible, recognize that they are tracing evidence of systematic cultivation of surface human development by entities whose wisdom and patience exceed surface comprehension. The selective contact maintained throughout history represents not accidental encounter, but careful guidance designed to enable surface civilization to achieve its highest potential while avoiding the catastrophic mistakes that destroyed previous advanced civilizations. The readiness protocol that governs current contact intensity suggests that surface civilization approaches thresholds that could enable either transcendence to higher development levels or repetition of previous catastrophic cycles. The guidance available through continued contact depends upon surface humanity's demonstration of wisdom sufficient to justify increased knowledge transmission and eventual open contact between civilizations whose development has proceeded along fundamentally different paths. The historical patterns of selective contact and readiness evaluation take on urgent significance when examined alongside recent attempts by surface organizations to penetrate the boundaries that separate our world from the civilizations beneath Antarctic ice. As the readiness protocols established over millennia continue their careful assessment of surface civilization maturity, independent groups have begun systematic efforts to force contact through technological advancement and coordinated exploration that challenges the controlled revelation systems maintained by subsurface guardians. Recent attempts to penetrate the inner realm's boundaries reveal sophisticated understanding of the evidence that points toward hidden civilizations, combined with surface technology that increasingly challenges the concealment systems that have maintained separation between worlds for centuries. Private research organizations, government black projects, and international scientific consortiums have begun deploying resources toward Antarctic exploration that exceeds the scope of official scientific research while targeting specific regions where thermal anomalies, geometric structures, and electromagnetic signatures suggest access points to subsurface territories. The most significant recent attempts have focused on the thermal anomaly zones, where satellite surveillance has detected heat signatures that indicate internal energy generation, far exceeding natural geological processes. Expeditions equipped with advanced ice drilling technology, ground-penetrating radar systems, and thermal monitoring equipment have approached these areas with clear intention of establishing direct contact with whatever intelligence creates the observed phenomena. Such expeditions represent fundamental shift from scientific curiosity to active pursuit of contact. Private expeditions facing systematic obstacles encounter interference that follows patterns too organized to be natural environmental challenges, equipment failures that occur at specific geographical coordinates, weather pattern changes that develop with timing that prevents access to target areas, and communication disruptions that isolate expedition teams at crucial moments when breakthrough discoveries seem imminent. The systematic nature of these obstacles suggests active intervention by entities possessing real-time awareness of surface approach attempts and technological capability to create selective interference without permanent damage to surface personnel or equipment. The most well-documented near-miss occurred during a privately funded expedition led by researchers who had identified correlation between historical contact accounts and specific geographical features visible in current satellite imagery. As the expedition approached coordinates where thermal readings suggested large-scale energy generation beneath the ice, their equipment began registering electromagnetic anomalies that indicated proximity to technological systems of extraordinary power and sophistication. Ground-penetrating radar operated by the expedition detected void spaces of enormous size directly beneath their position, with acoustic properties that suggested chambered areas containing atmospheric conditions rather than solid ice. Thermal monitoring equipment registered temperature spikes that indicated rapid approach towards sources of controlled energy generation. Communication equipment began receiving signal patterns that displayed mathematical relationships, suggesting intelligent origin rather than natural phenomena. At the moment when the expedition appeared to be on the verge of establishing direct contact with subsurface systems, their equipment experienced selective failures that prevented documentation while maintaining life support capabilities that ensured personnel safety. Navigation systems lost accuracy, preventing precise location recording. Camera and recording equipment suffered temporary malfunctions that left no permanent record of the detected phenomena. Communication systems were disrupted in ways that prevented real-time reporting to support teams. The expedition members described experiencing direct mental contact during the period when their equipment remained non-functional. Telepathic communication that provided clear message that surface approach attempts were being monitored and evaluated, but that direct contact would occur only when surface readiness protocols indicated appropriate timing. The entities responsible for the communication expressed neither hostility nor welcome, but indicated that surface civilization's development would determine whether such contact efforts resulted in beneficial interaction or forced separation through increased concealment measures. Climate change effects on ice stability create exposure risks that challenge the concealment systems that have maintained separation between surface and subsurface worlds for centuries. Accelerated ice melting, changing thermal patterns, and altered electromagnetic properties of ice formations create conditions where previously concealed structures and systems may become visible through conventional satellite surveillance. The subsurface civilizations face increasing difficulty maintaining invisibility as environmental changes expose features that were previously hidden beneath stable ice coverage. Rising temperatures and changing precipitation patterns have begun revealing surface features that correspond with subsurface geometric structures detected through ground-penetrating technology. Thermal imagery shows increasingly clear patterns that suggest underlying construction, while ice sublimation exposes geographical features that display artificial rather than natural formation characteristics. Such exposure creates time pressure for decisions regarding controlled revelation versus increased concealment efforts. Technology advances in ice-penetrating exploration provide surface research organizations with capabilities that increasingly challenge the boundaries between surface and subsurface territories. Advanced radar systems that can map detailed subsurface features, thermal detection equipment that can locate energy sources through miles of ice coverage, and drilling technology that can penetrate to depths where contact with subsurface systems becomes inevitable. The pace of technological advancement suggests that concealment systems face increasing pressure from surface detection capabilities. The coordination between various investigative efforts represents perhaps the most significant development in surface attempts to establish contact with subsurface civilizations. Previously isolated research groups, government agencies, and private organizations have begun sharing information and coordinating resources toward common goals that focus specifically on Antarctic contact rather than general scientific research. Such coordination suggests systematic surface effort to penetrate concealment systems through combined technological and logistical capabilities that exceed what individual organizations could achieve independently. International research consortium activities indicate coordination that transcends normal governmental and academic boundaries. Resources are being committed to Antarctic research that exceeds the scope justified by conventional scientific goals, while personnel with specialized skills in contact protocols, linguistic analysis, and consciousness research are being assigned to Antarctic projects. Such coordination suggests preparation for contact scenarios rather than routine scientific investigation. Military involvement in civilian research expeditions indicates recognition that contact attempts may encounter situations requiring protocols that exceed normal civilian expedition capabilities. Personnel with specialized training in first contact scenarios, diplomatic protocol, and crisis management are being integrated with scientific research teams in ways that suggest preparation for encounters that could fundamentally change the relationship between surface and subsurface civilizations. The technological race between surface penetration capabilities and subsurface concealment systems creates conditions where accidental contact may occur before readiness. Protocols determine appropriate timing for controlled revelation. Surface technology advancement proceeds according to competitive innovation timelines, while subsurface evaluation systems operate according to wisdom-based assessment that prioritizes long-term consequences over immediate curiosity satisfaction. Those who monitor these developments during the quiet hours when the implications of accelerating contact attempts become most apparent recognize that surface civilization approaches thresholds where the careful balance maintained between worlds for millennia may be disrupted by technological capability advancing faster than wisdom development. The near misses experienced by recent expeditions suggest that subsurface civilizations maintain awareness and control of contact timing, but that environmental changes and surface technological advancement create pressure toward revelation that may exceed the capacity for controlled disclosure. The systematic obstacles encountered by surface expeditions demonstrate both the reality of subsurface presence and the ongoing evaluation of surface readiness for contact. The challenge facing both civilizations involves managing the transition from controlled separation toward appropriate forms of interaction that serve the development of both surface and subsurface worlds, while preventing the kind of catastrophic contact that historical precedent suggests could result from premature interaction between civilizations of vastly different capabilities and perspectives. The accelerating pace of surface contact attempts converges with environmental pressures that threaten to disrupt the carefully maintained balance between worlds, creating conditions where controlled revelation may give way to circumstances that force discovery regardless of readiness protocols. The subsurface civilizations that have managed disclosure timing for millennia now face environmental and technological pressures that challenge their ability to maintain concealment until surface civilization demonstrates appropriate maturity for beneficial contact. Environmental changes forcing potential revelation operate on timescales that exceed political decision-making cycles, while creating exposure risks that could make concealment impossible within decades rather than centuries. Antarctic ice stability, which has provided perfect natural camouflage for subsurface civilizations throughout recorded history, shows signs of systematic change that could expose previously hidden features to satellite surveillance and conventional surface exploration. The pace of ice loss suggests that thermal anomalies, geometric structures and access points may become visible through normal scientific monitoring within timeframes measured in years rather than generations. Satellite thermal monitoring reveals increasing clarity in the heat signature patterns that indicate subsurface energy generation, as thinning ice coverage reduces the natural shielding that previously obscured such signatures from surface detection systems. Temperature differential maps show geometric patterns with definition that increasingly challenges natural explanation, while thermal monitoring systems detect energy output variations that suggest responsive rather than passive heat sources. Such clarity creates conditions where conventional scientists may begin asking questions that lead toward recognition of subsurface presence. Rising global temperatures affect Antarctic ice formations in ways that create structural instability, in regions where subsurface facilities require specific pressure and temperature conditions for optimal concealment. Ice sublimation and shifting thermal patterns may expose surface features that correspond with subsurface geometric structures, while changing electromagnetic properties of ice formations may reduce the natural interference that has prevented detailed surface scanning of subsurface areas. Prophetic traditions predicting polar disclosures provide historical context that suggests current environmental and technological pressures represent anticipated rather than random convergence of forces that challenge concealment systems. Indigenous oral histories, esoteric traditions, and mystical teachings from multiple cultures contain predictions regarding polar revelations that would occur during periods of great environmental change and technological advancement. The consistency of such predictions across diverse cultures suggests awareness of cyclic patterns that govern the relationship between concealed and surface civilizations. Tibetan prophecies describe the emergence of Shambhala during periods when surface civilization approaches critical technological and spiritual thresholds. These predictions specify polar regions as revelation points where hidden wisdom would emerge to guide surface humanity through transformation periods. The timing correlations between current environmental changes and prophetic timeline predictions suggest systematic awareness of the factors that would eventually force or enable open contact between worlds. Hindu texts describe kalpa cycles during which concealed civilizations emerge to provide guidance, when surface civilizations approach points where technological development, without corresponding wisdom development, threatens planetary stability. These cycles correspond with astronomical and environmental patterns that create conditions favorable for contact while indicating surface civilization readiness for receiving advanced knowledge without catastrophic misapplication. Native American prophecies describe the return of star people and underground dwellers during the time of great purification, when environmental changes force hidden civilizations to emerge and share knowledge necessary for planetary healing. These traditions specify polar regions as emergence points, while describing contact as necessary response to surface civilization's impact on planetary systems that affect both surface and subsurface environments. The window of opportunity for controlled first contact appears to be narrowing, as environmental changes and surface technological advancement create conditions where discovery may become inevitable, regardless of subsurface preferences for maintaining concealment until appropriate readiness is demonstrated. The convergence of multiple pressure factors suggests that subsurface civilizations face decisions about controlled revelation timing, while surface civilization approaches technological capabilities that may make concealment impossible. Controlled revelation protocols would enable subsurface civilizations to manage the pace and scope of contact, while maintaining guidance over how advanced knowledge is introduced to surface civilization. Such protocols would balance the benefits of shared knowledge against the risks of technological capabilities exceeding wisdom development, while providing framework for gradual integration of civilizations whose development has proceeded along fundamentally different paths. Surface world readiness versus forced discovery presents a fundamental challenge for managing contact outcomes. Readiness assessment protocols suggest that surface civilization has not yet achieved the combination of technological wisdom, social cooperation, and environmental stewardship that would ensure beneficial integration of advanced knowledge and contact with more developed civilizations. Yet environmental and technological pressures may force contact before such readiness is demonstrated. The gap between surface civilization's technological development and spiritual, ethical development creates conditions where advanced knowledge could either catalyze transcendence to higher development levels or enable more sophisticated forms of self-destruction. Contact with civilizations that have resolved this developmental challenge successfully could provide guidance that enables surface civilization to achieve balanced advancement, but only if surface readiness ensures beneficial rather than destructive application of such guidance. Preparation protocols for civilizational contact would require unprecedented cooperation between surface organizations to develop frameworks for managing contact with civilizations possessing capabilities that exceed surface understanding. Such preparation would need to address technological integration, social adaptation, economic transformation, and spiritual development implications of contact with entities whose advancement renders current surface civilization assumptions obsolete. Contact preparation would require development of communication protocols that enable meaningful interaction between civilizations whose consciousness and technological capabilities operate according to different principles. Surface preparation for consciousness-based communication, technological integration that serves wisdom rather than power, and social frameworks that could adapt to abundance-based rather than scarcity-based civilization models. The psychological preparation of surface populations for contact with more advanced civilizations would require educational programs that expand understanding of consciousness, technology, and social organization beyond current surface civilization models. Such preparation would need to address the worldview transformations necessary for beneficial integration with civilizations that have transcended the limitations that currently constrain surface development. International coordination for contact scenarios would require cooperation levels that exceed current diplomatic capabilities while addressing sovereignty, resource distribution, and governance implications of contact with civilizations whose technological capabilities could fundamentally transform surface civilization, infrastructure, and social organization. Those who contemplate these convergent pressures during the deep silence of polar nights, when the scope of impending transformation becomes almost tangible, recognize that surface and subsurface civilizations approach decision points that will determine whether contact occurs through wisdom or force, preparation or accident, beneficial integration or catastrophic culture shock. The coming convergence represents not distant possibility, but immediate pressure that may resolve within current lifetimes. The window for controlled beneficial contact remains open, but environmental and technological pressures create urgency that challenges the patient evaluation systems that subsurface civilizations have maintained throughout history. The choice between preparation and reactive crisis management may determine whether contact enables surface civilization to transcend current limitations or repeats the catastrophic patterns that destroyed previous advanced civilizations that received advanced knowledge before achieving adequate wisdom for its beneficial application. The convergent pressures that push both civilizations toward inevitable contact raise the most profound question of all. What would open interaction between surface and subsurface worlds actually mean for human civilization as we understand it? The implications extend far beyond simple technological exchange or diplomatic relations to encompass fundamental transformation of human understanding about our place in the cosmos, our potential for development, and the very nature of reality itself. Such transformation would represent not gradual evolution but revolutionary shift that would render current human civilization as historically distant as our Stone Age ancestors seem to contemporary society. The shattering and rebuilding of human understanding would begin with recognition that every assumption about human history, technological development, and our planet's nature requires complete reconstruction. The discovery that advanced human civilizations have existed throughout recorded history, while maintaining perfect concealment from surface awareness, would challenge fundamental beliefs about human achievement, technological progression, and the relationship between knowledge and civilization development. Such recognition would create psychological and intellectual crisis that could either catalyze transcendence to higher understanding or trigger defensive rejection of evidence that challenges comfortable illusions about human development and planetary mastery. Educational systems worldwide would require complete restructuring to incorporate historical knowledge that spans tens of thousands of years, rather than the few millennia currently acknowledged in surface historical records. Scientific understanding would need expansion to include technologies that operate according to principles currently considered impossible, while social and political theories would require revision to account for civilization models that have achieved stability and abundance rather than managing scarcity and conflict. The scope of required intellectual reconstruction would challenge the adaptability of institutions and individuals whose identity and authority depend upon current understanding frameworks. Religious and spiritual systems would face integration challenges as evidence of advanced human civilizations operating according to consciousness-based technologies would require reconciliation with beliefs about human nature, divine intervention, and the relationship between physical and spiritual reality. Some traditions would find validation for ancient teachings about hidden wisdom and spiritual advancement, while others would struggle to maintain doctrines that depend upon current limitations being permanent rather than temporary constraints on human development. Technological gifts and their responsible integration present perhaps the greatest challenge and opportunity associated with open contact. The technologies developed by subsurface civilizations, crystalline energy systems, consciousness-integrated manufacturing, anti-gravity transportation, and ecological integration systems could solve every major problem currently facing surface civilization, while creating capabilities that exceed our wildest technological fantasies. Yet the same technologies could enable unprecedented destructive capabilities if integrated without corresponding wisdom development. Energy abundance through crystalline planetary tapping systems could eliminate resource scarcity and competition, while providing clean, unlimited power for any conceivable application. Such abundance could transform social organization by removing the economic pressures that drive much surface civilization conflict, but could also enable military applications that would make current weapons seem primitive by comparison. The challenge would involve ensuring that energy abundance serves beneficial development rather than enabling more sophisticated forms of warfare or environmental destruction. Consciousness-integrated technology could enhance human mental capabilities while providing direct interface with technological systems that respond to thought and intention. Such integration could accelerate learning, improve communication, and enable unprecedented creative expression, but could also create dependencies that might reduce human autonomy while enabling surveillance and control capabilities that exceed any current totalitarian system's capacity for population management. Anti-gravity transportation could provide efficient, pollution-free movement while opening three-dimensional transportation networks that would transform commerce, social interaction, and geographical relationships. Yet the same technology could enable unprecedented military mobility while disrupting established economic and social systems based on current transportation limitations and geographical constraints. Learning from historical contact disasters provides crucial guidance for managing the integration of advanced capabilities with surface civilization development. Historical precedent suggests that contact between civilizations of vastly different technological capabilities typically results in the destruction of less advanced civilizations through conquest, disease, or cultural dissolution. Yet the subsurface civilizations appear to have studied such outcomes and developed approaches designed to prevent repetition of catastrophic contact patterns. The careful cultivation of surface development through selective knowledge transmission represents a systematic approach to preventing cultural shock while gradually preparing surface civilization for broader contact. Such preparation acknowledges that beneficial contact requires readiness development rather than simple exposure to advanced knowledge or technology. The subsurface approach suggests understanding that sustainable contact requires mutual benefit rather than one-sided knowledge transfer. Contact protocols that emphasize consciousness development alongside technological integration would address the wisdom gap that has historically made advanced knowledge dangerous for less prepared civilizations. Spiritual and ethical development requirements for accessing advanced knowledge would ensure that technological capabilities serve beneficial purposes rather than satisfying destructive impulses or competitive advantages. The inner world's conditions for sustainable engagement appear to focus on surface civilization, demonstrating environmental stewardship, social cooperation, and individual consciousness development that indicates readiness for responsible application of advanced capabilities. Rather than simply sharing technology, sustainable contact would require surface civilization development that proves ability to integrate advanced knowledge without repeating the destructive patterns that characterize surface historical development. Environmental restoration and harmony would be prerequisite for accessing technologies that could either heal or devastate planetary ecosystems depending on the wisdom with which they are applied. Social cooperation that transcends competitive nationalism would be necessary for preventing advanced knowledge from triggering conflicts that could threaten planetary stability. Individual consciousness development would be required for safely interfacing with technologies that respond directly to thought and intention. Mutual transformation rather than conquest or submission represents the most profound aspect of beneficial contact between civilizations. Rather than subsurface civilizations simply educating surface humanity, successful contact would involve exchange that benefits both civilizations, while creating hybrid approaches that combine the strengths of different development paths. Surface innovation and adaptability could complement subsurface wisdom and stability, creating collaborative advancement that exceeds what either civilization could achieve independently. The dynamic creativity and diverse perspectives that characterize surface civilization development could provide valuable insights for subsurface civilizations whose stability might benefit from renewed contact with the innovative energy that drives surface cultural and technological development. Surface civilizations' experience with diversity, rapid adaptation, and creative problem-solving could complement the deep wisdom and technological mastery achieved through subsurface isolation and patient development. Cultural exchange could create new forms of art, philosophy, and social organization that integrate the best aspects of different civilizational approaches while transcending the limitations that constrain independent development. Music, literature, and visual arts could achieve new forms of expression through collaboration between civilizations whose creative development proceeded along fundamentally different paths. Scientific advancement could accelerate through collaboration between surface innovation and subsurface mastery, creating research approaches that combine surface experimental creativity with subsurface understanding of consciousness and planetary systems. Medical advancement could integrate surface biological research with subsurface longevity and enhancement technologies, creating health capabilities that exceed what either civilization has achieved independently. Those who contemplate these transformational possibilities during the profound silence of deep night, when the scope of potential human achievement becomes almost visible beyond current limitations, recognize that they are considering not just contact between different human civilizations, but the next stage of human evolutionary development itself. Contact with subsurface civilizations would represent not foreign encounter, but reunion with human potential that has been preserved through catastrophic periods while surface civilization rebuilt from technological and social ruins. The transformation that contact would bring involves recognition that human civilization has always possessed the potential for wisdom, abundance, and harmony that subsurface civilizations demonstrate. Contact would not provide alien knowledge, but would restore human heritage that has been temporarily lost through surface civilizations' focus on competition, scarcity, and technological development without corresponding wisdom cultivation. The greatest transformation would be recognition that the limitations constraining current surface development are choices rather than inevitable human characteristics. The journey through Antarctica's white silence leads us back to the eternal paradox that has drawn seekers to frozen edges throughout human memory. What happens when we search for something that possesses the wisdom to remain hidden until we become worthy of finding it? The ice holds its secrets not through mere physical concealment, but through a deeper mystery that reflects our own readiness to encounter truths that would transform everything we believe about our world and ourselves. Antarctica stands as mirror to our deepest longings and fears. The vast white expanse reflecting both the emptiness we fear lies at the heart of existence and the infinite potential that whispers of civilizations whose achievement represents what we might become. In seeking the hidden realm beneath the ice, we seek ourselves as we could be, wise rather than merely clever, abundant rather than competitive, integrated with rather than opposed to the natural world that sustains all life. The invitation to readiness echoes through ice and time, carried on polar winds that have witnessed the rise and fall of surface civilizations, while deeper wisdom waited in chambers where patience has been perfected into art. Whether the greatest civilization on Earth lies hidden beneath Antarctic ice may be less important than whether we possess the courage to become worthy of discovering it. The search continues in the white silence, in the quiet hours when those who listen feel the pull of mysteries that remain just beyond the edge of understanding, waiting for the moment when human wisdom catches up with human curiosity, when the seeker becomes ready for what has always been waiting to be found.